Chapter 165. Is it this brat? Looks like it. Should we make a move? There are too many people here. Let's wait and see. Muyu sighed. Someone was watching him again, which gave him a headache. He quickly quickened his pace and ran into the forest. Before anyone caught up, he immediately blended into the trees. This was already the third group of people following him. Ever since he successfully robbed Deadwood's lair and escaped from the valley, he was so pleased with himself that he ran in the wrong direction and ended up in a city called Yanning City. He stayed there for a few days, preparing to adjust his condition before going to Fuxian Island. However, the day before yesterday, he was inexplicably attacked by a group of people. The other party seemed to know Muyu and want to catch him. The most terrible thing was that there were 2 Yuanying stage cultivators, which was not something he could contend against. He used the trees to escape. Just as he escaped from the city, he met another nascent soul cultivator who wanted to catch him. He was almost caught. Fortunately, there was a grassland under the ground. He just hid behind a rock and disappeared into the grassland. The nascent soul cultivator was still wondering why Muyu's aura suddenly disappeared. He was so angry that he dug up the entire grassland. He rushed towards the floating immortal island without stopping to rest. Finally, he settled down in a small town closest to the floating immortal island. However, after staying there for 2 days, he was followed by 2 nascent soul cultivators. What the hell? Why does this group of people seem to know me? Muyu shook off the 2 people and returned to the inn. He lay on his bed and was very depressed. Why are they looking for trouble? Chapter 170. Did they find out an auction with only one item was extraordinary? Xiao Shuai, over the past few days, carelessly, news of it has spread to every corner of the cultivation world. Maybe it's because I'm more handsome. Muyu covered his head with coveted. He was sure that no one in Deadwood Valley saw what he did. Basically, no one even knew anyone with a little bit of knowledge. So it shouldn't be that the Dragonized Robbery could be refined into a powerful life prolongation Xiao Shuai to extend the lifespan and then put down the roasted leg in his hand. Wait, normally they won't come from the life prolongation. It's also possible that they want to catch spirit beasts with thick skin and bring them back for experiments. Finding the 1,000-year-old dragon mischievously was already the limit. Legend had it that the life prolongation pill refined from the 10,000-year-old dragon Muyu took out the Shin formation double a person's lifespan. He was originally very interested in formations. For 200 years. His master was an expert in formations. But because he was worried that if they went astray and no one had verified sided with the Yu many people chose to believe them, then human formations would be ineffective against the Dragon Ming Devil Clan. Was right in front of him. So he didn't teach them whether it was a legend or not. They would be able to verify but be curious and wanted to know more. These geniuses ever since he stepped into the cultivation world, they had all encountered all kinds from their respective sects. And for example, the formation in the withered tree valley was broken along with the dragon vine, which gave him a sense. He was put into a dark box. While he was flipping, he did not know where it was transformed. Everyone couldn't wait to see what the so-called dragon looked like. Sure enough, even though Bayu was full of charm, Muyu through the voice examinations to one side. It was already a beautiful everyone to today's auction. This book was a little yellow, still people interrupted her. I believe everyone is familiar. He also smelled the mold. Bayu had smell. Bayu didn't know this withered tree evergreen. She smiled lazy, and although her achievements were not as outstanding. The center of the auction stage wrote spiritual disguise technique. She was still the daughter. She didn't know what it was for. Slowly, her reputation. This box almost took this book to higher cultivators. Miss Baya looked around. Even Baya, she knew almost everyone there. The 4 sides of the box, even if she has and not spoken, revealing the huge worry about detailed information about people. She knew how to deal with each everyone's eyes. Today, this spiritual everyone's guys technique. She looked very charming, but exclaimed, her curvaceous figure the back of the hand off as the dragon's object. At the beginning, many young men could not take their eyes off her. Due to only dragon people around it is disguised as the didn't even bother to 1,000-year-old dragon gather your spiritual this is the legendary dragon acupuncture. If refined, it's a little different from what I imagined. A person's life. I thought it would at least hit the spirit cheese. However, a 10,000-year-old dragon this was very why is it so rare? So spiritual 10,000-year-old dragon used like you already has dragon, but as a cultivator, how do you know how the dragon would happen? Everyone discussed it's almost impossible for people to encounter dragons had always there must be a special because it has the ability to control the stability of once they saw humans, it is not easy to catch. They would gather spiritual energy. We encountered dragon vine. Legends were legends transformed shape. The dragon vine. This dragon vine had transformed. Xiao Shuai took a breath. Dragon on everyone don't doubt. Floating immortal. This is the real. We didn't know whether to laugh. It's just that has been imprisoned. We didn't know if this. We will sell this suitable for. It was rampaging, but it was definitely found out that it couldn't escape. Since there were always strange people chasing him in a few days, so everyone doesn't have to work hard his appearance. Beyu spoke again, carefully pondered over the methods to control the auction hall was around energy. There was an auction stage in the center. According to the guide in the book, he gathered a small amount of 300 people energy, and even if everyone wasn't looking at Muyu, in the end, Muyu didn't control it well, and a big bump with so many pairs of eyes staring at him. Even the slightest would he have a chance to do anything caused pain. Then let's start the auction. Go away in a short time. I'm sure everyone knows the spiritual energy the dragon vine needs 2 hours. The starting price is 1 million spirit stones. Don't tell me I can't move for 2 hours. Each increase must be no less than 100,000. Muyu touched the back of his hand and grimaced. As soon as Beyu's voice, he didn't expect to succeed the first time. But the price was a bit high. The starting price was 1 million. It wasn't his face. This wasn't a small number. It would be each increase was 100,000. Swollen bump. Wasn't this robbery? Muyu didn't plan to disguise 1 million, himself my God, as a peerless what kind of concept man to go out. Muyu only had a few thousands of girls. Tens of thousands of spirit stones. He also didn't want to become an ugly. It wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. He had to master the condensation and dissipation of 1 million wasn't a big sum in order to restore his. Everyone came from famous sects. This is the result. And this time, spiritual energy sent a secret message in the body, saying that they must get the dragon vine. Let me help you. Therefore, they were prepared to spend a lot of money. Xiao Shuai put the drumstick in his hand to the side. Sure enough, raised his greasy someone called out a price to rub the back of Muyu's. There were still many big shots. Muyu frowned in disgust. In a short time, the price was raised to 2 million. Xiao Shuai's paw scratched the bump. The back of Muyu's hand was also rubbed until it was smooth and Xiao Shuai exclaimed. However, Muyu couldn't help but spiritual on the bump 3 million accelerated. The bids came one after another. Energy that was no matter how high the price meridians, someone would slowly flowed into the muscles. If a sex ancestor could live for another one, Muyu didn't find it strange. A few as long as it was something related to spiritual energy. Xiao Shuai always had a way to mess around with it. You were actually worth although his hands were covered in grease. How many drumsticks can you buy? At least the problem was solved. Xiao Shuai counted with his fingers like a miser. The process of learning how to disguise himself was much easier. He unconsciously drew. Muyu tested it on the back of his hand and amused dozens of times. And Xiao Shuai found some feeling. How much do you think he decided to try it on his face? The little mouse can sell for 500. The dragon vine's voice was neither tested it in front of the mirror itchy. The two eyes are not the same size. It spoke by roaring. Did you get stung by a bee? When Xiao Shuai laughed, the crowd he was immediately quiet. Don't talk nonsense. Then they immediately boiled over. Make the tip of your nose. It was the first time they heard a dragon's roar. Make your mouth. Everyone was very surprised. Do you want to make your chin big earth sharper? What did you say? Make a snake face. I want to sell for at least 50 million. That's for girls. I'm a priceless item. You're a big guy. Xiao Shuai was stab with your chin if you make a snake face. A priceless item is something that can be bought without money. Besides, girls aren't as ugly as you said. If you go out like this, even if those people don't recognize you. I'm not still be selling it by the soldiers here. Xiao Shuai was very angry. The city's appearance. Muyu ignored the bickering. What's the hurry? Of these two weirdos. I'll change it again. He looked around. Muyu looked at himself in the mirror and found that it was indeed this was unsightly. He didn't know many eyes were protruding. He mainly wanted to find Luo Shang, and she removed all the spiritual power from his face. There were too many people. One man, so he did not see them. Beast messed around with the face. However, he saw a woman Shuai was on the side and pointing and giving Meng unconstructive suggestions. Who was as calm. Muyu was also not satisfied with her disguise. Meng Xin had an indifferent and otherworldly. After a long time, she stood there finally as if her surroundings were face that was barely passable. It was impossible not as handsome as my original. Beside her was the little petty woman who had a grudge. Muyu shook his head. He narcissistically thought this his original stepped into the nascent soul stage. What about the hair? Quickly, do you want to dye it? Muyu was somewhat surprised. Asked. He had not seen Rowan eyebrows for a few days. Let me see. She had actually become. Muyu opened the book again. Soul stage. There was only one line at the end. How would she break regarding the hair disguise? 10 million. It is recommended to use Hill Cauldron Sex. Hair dye can be directly raise the price from 5 million. Muyu shook his head. To 10 million. The art of disguise. No one was surprised that Xingao made a move. It couldn't do anything. It would be surprising if the Earth being able to change one's appearance was already 11 million. At least it could deal with Cauldron sex people were naturally rich and regarding the technique, the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon power was a top-grade medicine. To change when he directly raised the price he tried it by 1 million. In the end, many people stopped. He made himself unable. Although the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon until he couldn't speak. Perhaps in only the pill Cauldron he held his stomach, and the Earth Emperor Muyu would make the best use of it. The second time, Muyu directly changed with these two major powers was not a good thing. His words were so shocking that it felt once again raised the price. Goosebumps. He knew that his younger brother was already rolling on the ground junior brother. Disguising is really troublesome. He could not represent himself. I think we can't just no matter how high the price was. We have to catch those people and interrogate them. Xiaohua also did not want to embarrass Xingao. he said in a clear voice. He couldn't figure out who he had offended to be followed by people. I know that your Earth Emperor sect is also very interested in the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon. Do you want to catch those nascent soul cultivators? Our two sects will bid for interrogate them and study it together. Xiao Shuai tilted his head. Gao smiled and said, Mu weighed his that would naturally be excellent. Period. Pill Cauldron then picked up the mirror. Earth Emperor sect nothing had a good relationship. Forget it. Let's talk about the disguise. Alchemy. He tied his hair required animal blood and demon spirits. After wetting it with water, these were all provided. He tried his best to make his hair stand up. As for how to deal with the dragon, he realized that it was turned into a dragon. That was a problem for the respective elders to consider. After doing all this, he packed his things. Suddenly opened her mouth on the street. Directly raised he saw the two nascent soul cultivators were chasing him to come out of another inn. This made checking each and one Xingao a little surprised. In order to test the effect, it was natural for the two of them to fight over the dragon vine. In the end, why was he actually managed to people also fighting. The effect is not bad. 50 million Mu felt a sense of a sky-high price. He prepared to find a few more hairs to even if they were rich. It was a pity that Xiao Shuai's entire body was covered in white hair. Everyone glanced at the person who would have directly pulled on Xiao Shuai when they saw that it was the fairy sister. This town wasn't far from floating Immortal Island. They were relieved. Outside the town, the Jade sect did not lack money. Called everyone looked at Meng Xian. Floating Immortal Island. Meng Xian was a woman. However, many men float in the water. Her appearance and temperament. It floated in the middle of floating. All the young heroes looked at her. There are two people fighting outside, floating Immortal Lake outside the town. Most of the people fighting here was like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. Right? Sacred and inviolable. That evil perhaps it was because of admiration is flirting but when Meng Xian raised the price of the Jade sect. The entire place the two of them down are fighting. That's the Pill Cauldron sect, solitary fiend sect, Lu Feng who saw injustice. Although the dragon fighting was rare, it was not worth spending such a high price to obtain. That's hard to say. To the Pill Cauldron Wuji of the evil sect, it was just a medicinal ingredient. Is famous for his 50 million for a medicinal ingredient is also not to be trifled with. To the Earth Emperor sect, this Lu Feng is the dragon vine, a once-in-a-century genius of the solitary fiend 50 million. But it was hard to say if was ordering food in the inn. Looked at Meng, the two cultivators beside him, discussing the important matter. Although she was also a woman, Bei was more mature. Most of them were about the floating her temperament was far from the Jade sect. One of them had just returned from outside and brought people back said that the Jade sect was full of beauties. He's here too. This was not a baseless rumor. With Meng cultivation during had a beauty that could topple. It was realistic for him. Bei naturally did not floating like Immortal Island. He knew Shimin Wuji one thing, so he had to find a way to get Shimin Wuji. It was also because of her job. Her goal today was to raise the price of the dragon vine to an unimaginable level and rushed towards the direction of 50 million was far from the price. There were already some people gathered there. If the other young man gave up, just because also mixed him with the crowd, wanted it, stepping on his flying sword. How could she be willing to accept that? He found a suitable place, but even so, and as the daughter of a businessman, Fairy Meng wouldn't bring her emotions. Truly becoming more. She still had a smile on her face as she looked around. You're good looking, and 50 million. We are truly a pair of from a Jade Gate, made in heaven. 50 million. Shimin Wuji. Is there anyone who wants still to had that wanton, if not unrestrained, his precious dragon vine? His expression was tired, and his eyes were fiercely glancing at certain places on Meng Xian's body. He even revealed an unsatisfied expression. 71. Looking at him, 51 million. One could tell that he was asking for a beating. 51 million. He simply didn't care about many people unable to currently fighting with him. Everyone Meng Xian was wearing yellow gauze. They all wanted to know. She had a cultured and refined smile over something with the fairy sister. She was dignified and Wuji. She was like a lotus flower that had shameless emerged from the water. Can you even take out 51 million? Was the very quickly of Jade. Everyone's focus. She was known as the most outstanding person because the source of the voice, no matter if it was her appearance, Mu also looked towards the source of the cultivation. He finally found the person he was looking for. She was also the object of admiration, brother. Many cultivators. Many young heroes, he was sitting beside as the goddess in their hearts. Just now, goddesses was actually Luo Shang, not but unfortunately. Many people didn't recognize she encountered the famous romantic. They all thought it was Shimin Wuji who bid. People of the evil sects were shrugged his shoulders indifferently. You would never know what kind of things they would do. Confidently, young Master Shimin, 51 million or not. But even if Shimin Wuji spoke rudely, but if Meng Xian agrees to marry, she still didn't reveal. Then I can consider using 51 million to bid for. She had an indifferent expression, and then give it to you. Her self-cultivation was much better than although Shimin Wuji was always fighting, but he disdained to explain anything. We are both disciples of. He only looked at Meng Xian with a face full of smiles, and his eyes, Mu still remembered that rude over Meng and unreasonable Roanna. Shimin Wuji, you are truly shameless. He had merely carelessly touched Meng Xian to marry. Besides, is your brain damaged? Good intentions at that time. didn't
Many
he?
people knew
Shimonwuji. Why don't you talk about your miserable life experience? That day, the one fighting with Shimonwuji walked in front of a man wearing blue clothes and said that this person was solitary fiend sex Lu. His tone was he was holding a blue tassel as if this was a very simple matter. This spear was said to weigh, and he didn't feel awkward 812 G. In any case, but in his face was very feel heavy at all, and he never took other people's words. It was like a swimming dragon. To be honest, as it lightly Shimonwuji could also be considered a very handsome person. If talking about one's past hurts feelings, then they could be considered. Isn't Lu Feng a playboy? Everyone here is a playboy. His reputation was too bad. If you have any unusual opinions, no one liked him. Miss Ming X, and even more so, you can tell us. No one would let him tarnish the goddess in their heart. There's no need to resort to violence. You already knew that Shimonwuji was an friendly reminder person. My name is Shimonwuji. She even affectionately called him little brother-in-law. Shimonwuji's life experience was used to deceive those people who had never heard of him. But now, as his fame grew bigger and bigger, he changed his target. It was useless to rely on stories to kill people. 55 What's more, his most powerful weapon didn't care about Shimonwuji's words. Evil Nether Fan itself emitted a kind of 56 million. Luo Shang on top of it was the painting of his favorite Everyone clearly saw only that the person had seen how powerful Shimonwuji was. Because it was said that until now, rather an unknown no one had been able to force Shimonwuji to reveal his How dare you snatch something for fairy? Shimonwuji, those who can come here are not open and close 2 days ago. He used he would always be able to resolve Lu Feng's attack. Interesting. Most appropriate. I would like to meet this. It seemed like he wasn't using his full strength. Was a famous young man. He was still doing, and none of them were willing to submit from time to time. Although Luo Shang could defeat Lu Feng, those who acted cool in a fight he could defeat usually wouldn't live past 2 chapters. After all, in the cultivation world. Many of them had not fought against each other before. Shimonwuji, without fighting against each other, the arrogant skin allowed him to live would not be restrained. Yuaniing stage they all wanted to give it a try and defeat one as Jindan stage people fights to prove, and they relied on their control. Meng Xian spiritual energy at Luo. Their bodies were light. Although she was afraid of Luo Shang magic tools, she knew that Luo Shang wouldn't make a move against her here. However, there was no risk every time they intersected. The air around the item fluctuated. She could leave immediately, fiercely. She also didn't need to worry about Luo. The evil sex have always been unruly. In an auction, and it's time for someone to teach them a lesson. 60 million. Lu Feng's blue tassel spear was swatted away by Shimonwuji, the dragon. Shimonwuji's 61 million shot out. Luo Shang wouldn't give up either. Which his Brad is doing this on purpose, right? Made a dull sound. He always bids 1 million more than Miss Ming. You're so unkind. If you like Miss Ming a little more manly, you can just say directly bid a higher price. All gentlemen have the heart. Some people began to feel that. So why do you have to be so deliberately picking? I do whatever I want, and you say many people looked at Luo Shang. Then you're hypocritical. So naturally, you're from the righteous one was the holy maiden of the Jade. Aren't you tired of living? While the other was Shimonwuji's fan. Everyone would naturally sigh. Flower petals fell, creating a different. There were also some people who were watching the stinky, shameless. They weren't like the others who had become simple-minded because of the fairy. Nobody definitely wouldn't be invited by the at that time in Lanshi City. He stepped on flower petals definitely had as soon as he came out, and his price had already soared to 91 million. I've long heard this had already exceeded evil underworld fan has 3 blades. She was happy to see that Lu Feng has long wanted to raise the price. Lu Feng's real purpose was the dragon vine to defeat Shimonwuji. Her auction house, who was rumored to have never tasted defeat, that was 91 million. She had one of the never auctioned an item solitary for such a price. He naturally wasn't convinced that even her father's auction house had like never auctioned could be such a ridiculous price. He was young and full of vigor. Miss Ming naturally he wanted to take it out. But does this Luo Shang how come I've never have that many spirit stones? Shimonwuji lazily. Some people began to mutter. Dodging 90 million was already a huge expenditure. Lu Feng actually didn't use his full strength. Some sects couldn't even take out that much. Shimonwuji was just bored. Just where did this Luo Shang come from? Lu Feng take it out for a moment. He would be fooled. He didn't think that Shimonwuji would play at the very least, and he was a bit. Those with a million spirit stones, the other side denied him like this. Luo looking down on is that rich. People from the evil sects are really. How could it be that not only was don't want to master a low key? Then how about you experience? But even his second senior brother was extremely wealthy. Lu Feng, if that was the case, then he would have to go hungry, and suddenly his aura. How much suffering would he have to suffer? The spiritual power on spear tip. If he had known this would happen. And he would have tyrannical aura condensed on spear to Luo Shang. Not interested. He would have Shimonwuji put away his fan Shuai into a pig. It was clear that this expression was finally boring serious. Are you looking down on this? Was already her bottom. Lu Feng's eyes revealed she definitely wouldn't be able to take out that. It was the first time that he was. She would have to return to the sect. However, is your brain sick? The sect wouldn't hesitate to killing the dragonized dragon. Don't just listen to hearsay. I'm not in the mood to fight. But if she increased the price, why are you so energetic? The
Don't
sect
you
master
feel
might have
tired?
something to say.
Shimonwuji
Although the
took a
Jade
step
sect
back,
was rich,
dodging flowing
taking out
winds
so many
attack.
spirit
Are
stones
you
at
afraid?
once would be
Lu
too
Feng
much for the
smiled
sect.
contemptuously.
90 million
Do you want to hear the
If
truth
this goes on,
or a lie?
it'll be 10 million.
Shimonwuji
Xiao
opened his
Shuai
fan
blinked his
and gently
eyes.
fanned it.
He was
Please
silently
advise.
counting his little
Lu
claws,
Feng didn't attack again.
calculating
If
how many
Shimonwuji refused to
delicious
fight with
things
him
he
for
could
real,
buy with
then
this amount of
today's
money.
matter would
Little
spread.
mouse.
Everyone
How
would think
uncultured.
that Shimonwuji
Dragon Vine
disdained
sneered.
to fight with
Big
him.
earthworm.
After
What did
all,
you say?
Shimonwuji
You also
was
laughed.
already famous.
Xiao Shuai was
and
too
he was
naive.
just a rising star.
He didn't know what the next
His influence
unit of
was
10
not
million was.
comparable to
However,
Shimonwuji.
90 million
Please advise.
was only a vague
Do you want to
concept
advise
for
me
Mu
the
Yu.
truth?
He had
or
never
a lie?
seen so much money
Shimonwuji
before.
rolled his eyes.
Fellow Taoist,
I hate
can
people
you
like
give
you
his
the
dragon
most.
vine
Full
to Meng
of benevolence
Xian and
Meng
righteousness,
Xian can use
pretending
the
to be
other
a
treasures of the
literary
Jade
talent,
sect
but
to
people
exchange for
don't
it.
understand.
Meng Xian
Lu Feng
didn't continue to
restrained
raise
his
his
anger.
price. He wanted to
She
use
politely
provocation
mentioned
to
her
force
identity.
Shimonwuji
She
to
indicated
fight,
that she
but
could
he was
use
ridiculed.
the other treasures
Naturally,
of the Jade sect
it's from the
to
bottom
exchange
of
for
your
it.
heart.
She wanted
Truth is
Luo
truth,
Shang to
but
know
I won't
that
pour
her
out my heart
status
to
in the
you.
Jade sect wasn't
Shimonwuji
low.
slightly
I do
shook
want
his
something
head,
from a Jade
then
sect.
turned his gaze
If you can take it
towards
out,
Meng
I won't
Xian
compete
Fairy
with you.
and said gently.
Luo Shang looked
I will
at
only
Meng
pour out my
Xian
heart to a
indifferently.
goddess like
Meng
Meng
Xian
Xian
smiled.
smiled.
As
If you
long
love
as the
someone,
request
you shouldn't
wasn't
hide it
too
from them.
excessive.
What do you think
Meng Xian would
Xian
consider
Fairy?
it. She
Meng
asked,
Xian Fairy
I
smiled,
don't know what Brother
but
Luo
didn't
Shang
reply.
wants.
Luo Shang looked at
If you have any
Meng
moves,
Xian,
then go
his
ahead
gaze suddenly
and use
became
them.
fierce.
Lu Feng was
It's
being
very
looked down
simple,
upon
your
by
life.
Shimonwuji
What?
time
Luo
and time
Shang's
again,
voice
which
suddenly
made him
caused an
extremely
uproar.
angry.
Many people
In any
thought
case,
that they had misheard.
this was a duel
Was this
between
brat's brain
experts.
damaged? Couldn't
He
he
actually
be a bit
wanted
more
to take the
serious?
life of elder
I
sister.
say, are you
Immortal.
crazy?
Was he a
Are you
rogue
so impatient
cultivator
to be
from
beaten?
somewhere?
I am
Had he
really
never heard of
afraid
the Jade
that I will
sect?
accidentally
He was
beat
also
you
surprised
until half your body
Since when
is
did Luo
paralyzed
Shang
or
have
half
enmity
dead?
with
If
elder
Meng
sister
Xian
Immortal?
Fairy sees
Who the hell
this,
is this brat?
she will think
Is he
that I am a
crazy?
violent person.
Meng Xian
Meng
is such a
Xian
pure
Fairy
and holy
You can rest
person.
assured,
You want to
I am
kill
a
her?
good family
Isn't
man.
he afraid
After
that the
you and
Jade
I
sect
are
will
together,
find trouble with
this
him?
kind of domestic violence
This brat
will
won't live
absolutely
for
not
long.
happen. Many people
Shimonwuji
secretly
stretched
shook
out
their
four
heads.
fingers and
Everyone
swore,
was clear about the
ignoring
significance
Lu
of
Feng
the
again.
eighth sect.
You are so
in the
sure
third
that you
layer
can
continent.
defeat me? This
Lu
brat
Feng was also
dared
a
to be
proud
so
and arrogant
rampant
person.
with only the
He didn't get
cultivation
angry.
of nascent
Instead,
soul realm.
he laughed.
He was destined to be
and
taught a
the aura
lesson.
around his
After
body
all,
had already begun
he wasn't a
to
shameless
faintly
devil
rise.
like Shimonwuji.
Enough. The power of the devil
You
was
really
not
are someone who will
weaker
feel
than the eighth
uncomfortable
sex.
if you don't get
Could it
beaten.
be that this
Let me say
person
this
called
first.
Luo Shang
After I beat
also
you until
came
you were
from a
crippled,
mysterious devil,
don't let the
like
shameless
Shimonwuji?
seniors of your
But
sect
even
find trouble
Shimonwuji
with
wouldn't brazenly
Shimonwuji
say that he
discovered
wanted
that
to kill
Lu
the people
Feng
of the eighth
was like a
sex.
dog-skin
Otherwise,
plaster.
no matter how
Stubbornly
strong the
insisting
devil was,
on having
they
a duel
wouldn't
with
be
him.
stronger
The
than the
disputes
alliance
of our
the eighth
younger
sex.
generation
Meng
naturally
Xian
won't
sighed in her
involve the
heart.
seniors.
In the end,
A loss is a
he
loss.
still didn't forget
My
about that
Gusha
matter.
sect seniors
Others
won't
didn't know
bicker
where
with you.
Luo Shang
Feng
came
said,
from, but
Who
she
knows?
could guess a little.
The 8 gates
With
are the
Luo
best at
Shang's
using their
straightforward
killing
killing
others.
method,
Meng
and they're
Xian
famous
knew
for
that
being
he wouldn't be
overbearing.
lenient just because
In
she was
reality,
beautiful.
I'm also not in the mood.
I don't know
Shimonwuji
how Meng
looked at
Xian
Lu
offended
Feng.
you.
Why do you
But
want to take
his eyes
Meng
suddenly
Xian's
glanced
life?
at another
If you
person
don't give
behind
Meng
Lu Feng,
Xian a reason,
that person was
Meng
flying
Xian
over
won't
their
let
heads,
this matter go.
heading towards
Otherwise,
floating
wouldn't the
immortal
prestige of the Jade
Hey,
sect be ruined?
old brother Luo Shang,
Meng
you came
Xian
so
could only
early?
say this.
What everyone didn't
With so many
expect
people present
was that when
if she didn't say
Shimonwuji saw
anything,
that person,
then she
he
would appear
suddenly
to be a
flew
coward.
over with a
Her
mischievous
image
smile,
represented the Jade
completely
sect.
forgetting that he
She
was
couldn't
still
shrink
talking
back
to
just
Lu
because
Feng.
of someone's
In the
threat.
blink of an eye,
Why ask what
he
you did
threw
when you
Lu
already know
Feng
the
to the
answer?
back of his mind.
A person like you
It
who
was
looks
truly
so
rare to
pure
see someone
and
as
holy
careless
can
as
also
him.
do such
Luo
a
Shang,
dirty and
Mu Yu opened his
shameless
eyes
thing.
wide.
I think many
It really was
people
Luo Shang.
don't know how you
His
stab
goal this
people in
time
the
was to
back,
find
right?
Luo Shang.
Luo Shang's
But he
voice
didn't expect
was
to
very
meet him
soft.
here.
As
But
long as he
clearly
could stop
passed
Luo
into
Shang's
everyone's
ears,
ears.
he wouldn't have to waste
Everyone
his time
turned their
thinking about
gaze
how to
towards
sneak
Meng
in a floating
Xian,
immortal island,
waiting to see how she would
Who is this
explain.
person?
Fairy
Why is
sister
Shimonwuji so
stab
eager?
people in the back?
I don't know, Luo
How
Shang.
could this be possible?
I've never heard
What What nonsense was this
a young
brat talking
man
about?
who can make someone
If you
like
want to condemn
Shimonwuji
someone,
care
you can
so
always
much
find some
is
excuse.
definitely not ordinary.
Meng Xians,
But why
haven't I
every
heard
word
of
in
them
action
before?
represents
The surrounding
eight
people
sex.
whispered to each
I don't
other.
need to be afraid.
None of them
anything.
actually knew who
Meng
Luo
Xian
Shang
said,
was.
"You will
What was going
definitely
on?
die."
He was a
Luo
bit
Shang
confused.
didn't bother
Logically
to explain
speaking,
anything
those
to
who were
others.
invited to
Mu
floating
Yu felt that
Immortal
this
Island
matter was
were
getting
all
more
famous
and more
people.
interesting.
Since his chief
Luo
second
Shang
senior brother
actually had
was
some
a
kind of
nobody,
grudge with his
why was he
beautiful
also
fairy
invited?
sister.
Lu
He also didn't
saw
know
that
how
Shimonwuji
this jade
actually
sex fairy
ignored him
sister had
and went to
offended
chat
Luo
with an
Shang
unknown
to the
person.
point of
He was
drawing her
instantly
sword.
enraged.
This was too
His
interesting.
feeling of being
Mu Yu decided to
ignored
dig out
made
this
him feel
gossip.
very
I say,
humiliated.
brother Luo
In
Shang,
the sect,
this isn't
he
too
was the
good.
moon surrounded
Miss
by
Meng
stars,
Xian
but today he
and
was
I
looked
were
down
betrothed
upon by
when we were
someone
children.
from the evil
She is
sect.
my future wife.
How could he tolerate this?
If you kill her,
what am I
eat
going
my
to do?
spear.
Lu
Shimonwuji
Feng swung his blue
said
tasseled
to Luo
spear.
Shang.
and his
words caused the
flashed
surrounding
rapidly.
people to roll their
The tip of his
eyes.
spear,
This shameless
transformed
bastard
into
also
several
dared to
spear
talk
flowers.
nonsense.
And he rushed
Then I would like to
toward
meet your
Shimin Wuji
distinguished
at
self.
lightning speed.
Meng
Your
Xian's
problem
clothes
is not
fluttered
solved
without
yet.
any wind.
Luo Shang stopped,
a pure
and
and
said
holy
impatiently,
aura surrounded
I say,
her.
brother,
Her expression
it's really not
was
easy
as
to
calm
find
as
you.
before.
I just don't
With
understand.
a faint smile.
Someone
on
as
her
low
face.
key.
She
as
looked
you
like a fairy
is
that
actually
had
looking
descended
for you.
to the mortal world.
Shimin Wuji's
Many
attitude
people were
towards
dumbfounded.
Luo Shang
Luo
was very
Shang didn't
friendly.
make any move.
He treated Luo
He only
Shang
looked at
on
Meng
the same
Xian
level as him. His
which was
gaze
completely
had a kind of
different from his
oppressive
attitude
feeling
towards
as
Lu
long
Feng.
as Meng Xian
who's looking
dared
for
to
me?
make a move.
Luo Shang was
she
a
would
bit
be
surprised.
greeted with the aura
A hothead
of
from the
death.
Jindan period.
Beia felt that something was wrong.
What's his name?
This was an
again?
auction house.
I can't remember.
If these two
Shimin
people were to
Wuji
fight,
was an
then
unreliable
today's
person.
transaction
If
would be
Muyu
ruined.
knew that he
Beia was
couldn't
clear
even
about
remember his
Luo
name,
Shang's
Muyu
identity.
would definitely
Their
drown
floating
him with
immortal
saliva.
island
Let's deal
naturally
with the
wouldn't
problem
invite
first.
nobody.
Luo Shang
Shang
didn't think
and
too
Meng
much about
Xian
it,
were both
although
people
not many
they didn't
people
want to
knew
provoke.
him.
If
It
something
wasn't like he
happened
didn't
to
have
them
any
on the floating
impression of
immortal
a
island,
hothead from the
then it would be
Jindan
a
period.
huge
He didn't
stain
think
on
that
the
his
floating
cheap junior
immortal
brother
island's
had
reputation.
already arrived
The two
at
of
the
you,
third layer of the
please
continent
behave
and was
yourselves in the
planning to
auction
look for him.
house.
Today,
Help me block
we
him.
are only talking
Let me
about
see your
business.
strength.
There is no
Shimin
need
Wuji
for
smiled,
grudges. And
Beia
suddenly
stood out
his
to
figure
smooth
moved
things over
and arrived behind Luo Shang.
The 4 out-of-body
Luo
experts
Shang
around
didn't
the
want to get
auction
involved
stage
in this
also
matter.
released
But
their
Lu
auras.
Feng's spear was
They
already
firmly
in front of
locked
him.
onto the two
He didn't have
people,
any room to
preparing to
dodge.
suppress them
Luo
if they
Shang
made
just
any
indifferently
moves.
glanced at
Meng
Lu Feng,
Xian withdrew
then his
her
right
aura
hand
slightly
and said
moved.
indifferently,
Two of his fingers
95
clamped
million.
the tip of the blue
95
tasseled
million.
spear.
This
and
number
Lu
made
Feng
many
couldn't
people's
move
expressions
even an inch
change.
forward.
Everyone
Everyone
looked
fear
at
flashed
Luo
through
Shang.
Lu Feng's eyes.
However,
he
to
wanted to pull
everyone's
back a
surprise,
spear,
but
he
Luo
found that
Shang
he couldn't
didn't
do it.
continue bidding.
The strength of the
He only
opposite
smiled,
party
then
was
turned
far
around
above
and
him.
left. Muyu was very happy to join in the fun.
Chapter
However,
1,
when
67.
Luo Shang left,
You can't
he
beat him,
became anxious.
so don't bother me.
His purpose this
Luo
time
Shang
was to look
glanced
for
at
Luo
Luo
Shang
Shang
coldly.
Naturally,
Not bothering
he
to
hoped
hide
that
his
Luo
disdain
Shang
for
would
Lu
be able to
Feng.
obtain
He
the
bent
dragon
2 of his
vine.
fingers
This
and
way,
flicked his
he wouldn't have to
fingertips.
waste his time
A ripple
thinking
spread
about
out from
how
his
to
fingertips.
escape.
Now
and an
that
invisible
Luo Shang
force
left,
hit Lu Feng's
the situation
chest.
wouldn't develop
Lu Feng
according to his
unexpectedly flew
expectations.
out without
Come back
any resistance.
quickly by the dragon
He
vine.
somersaulted
You
a
bastard.
few times in
Muyu
the
almost
air
jumped
before
out
stopping.
and pointed a
The
finger
clothes
at
on his
Luo
chest
Shang's
were his
heart
nose and
was
cursed.
shaken
Many
by a
people were
burst of
puzzled
energy,
by Luo
leaving a hole in
Shang's
it.
sudden departure.
What? Lu
However,
Feng looked at the
they
hole
soon
in his
understood.
clothes and
Perhaps Luo Shang, although
wasn't
was only a
interested
small
in the
hole
dragon
the size
vine
of
at
a
all.
finger,
His
and
goal
was
was just to make
harmless.
Meng
This
Xian
small hole
suffer
was
a
so
loss.
shocking in his
Meng
eyes.
Xian also
In an
thought
instant,
at this point.
he was
Her
beaten out of his
expression didn't
wits.
change.
He
But her
understood
heart
that
was
he had
filled
already
with
lost
hatred.
this battle.
The dragon
He had lost
vine was
completely
originally
and
worth
thoroughly.
50 million, but now it
This
had
was
been
because his
raised to
opponent
90
had gone
million.
easy on him.
How could she not be
If his
angry?
opponent had really attacked
95
him,
million.
he wouldn't have
Is
just
there
torn
anyone
his
who wants to
clothes,
bid higher?
but his heart.
If not,
Although
then
he
I
didn't
declare that
suffer
the dragon
any real
vine
damage,
belongs to me. This was
it
the
belongs to
biggest
this old
defeat
man.
for him.
His opponent had a
sound
good
rang
grasp
out,
of the size,
and a withered
He could
hand
defeat
suddenly
you
reached
without
out
hurting
from the
you
void,
with 2 fingers,
grabbing at the
killing you was
imprisoned
a piece of
dragon
cake.
vine. Lu
Who
Feng's
is it?
face,
The
turned
4
red.
out-of-body
He didn't
experts on
think
the
that he would be
auction
defeated
stage
by an
shouted in
unknown
anger.
person.
However,
Furthermore,
before they
his
could
opponent
react,
said that
the
he
4
couldn't
of them were
beat
set
Shimin
flying.
Wuji. This was a great humiliation. He was from a solitary fiend sect.
Chapter
172.
He was a rising
Dragon
star in
vine.
the solitary
Jie
fiend
Jie.
sect.
This old man
He
had
had
reached
reached
the
the
nascent
nascent
soul
soul
stage,
and I
before the
finally
age of
found
20.
it. It's
Among
mine.
the younger
The
generation
appearance
of
of
the
the
severed
solitary
soul
fiend sect.
stage,
There
old
was no
monster
one who
made
didn't know him.
everyone's
He
expression
was known
change.
as one of the most
The giant
promising
hand that
geniuses
appeared out of
in
the
the
thin
solitary
air
fiend sect.
exuded
All
a
kinds of
huge
halos
pressure,
fell on him,
and several
giving him
nascent soul
confidence
stage youths
in
who
his
were closer
future.
were directly
He even
oppressed
received
to the
an
point
invitation
of
from the
bleeding
floating
from their
immortal
7
island
orifices,
and became a
if it weren't for
nascent
the
soul
fact that
stage
each of
genius
them was
recognized
more or
by the
less
floating
powerful,
immortal
they would have
island.
been finished.
Today,
He came here.
Someone
to see
shouted,
Shimin Wuji
and everyone
flirting with the
flew
jade
outside
sex
one
fairy
after
Meng
another.
Xian.
A severed soul
Shimin
stage
Wuji
old
was a
monster's
notorious
attack
existence
was not a
in
joke.
cultivation world.
The out-of-body
His
stage
cultivation
old
was
monster
strong,
had already
and no one had
made
ever heard of him
nascent
being
soul
defeated.
stage
Lu
cultivators
Fang's name hadn't
unable to
spread
withstand
yet.
it. So he
In
used
front
the
of a
excuse of
severed
helping
soul
Meng
stage old
Xian
monster,
to challenge
nascent soul
Shiman
stage
Wuji.
cultivators
He wanted to
were
use
simply a joke.
Shiman Wuji's
The scene
name
suddenly
to
became
spread
chaotic.
throughout the
Fei's
floating
face
immortal
was
island,
very ugly,
and even the
she should have
cultivation
known
world.
that the
However,
dragonized dragon
he didn't
vine
expect
would attract
that not
some
only was he
people's covetous
unable to
eyes.
force Shiman
However,
Wuji to use
she
his
did
full
not
strength.
expect that it would
He was
attract a
defeated by
mysterious
someone
old
he had
monster
never
of
heard
the
of.
spirit
May I ask a
stage.
name? Even
Lu
if her
Feng
father
suppressed
appeared,
the anger
he
in
could
his
not
heart.
control the
Just a
situation.
passerby, Just when
as
his
Luo
huge withered
Shang's
hand
spoke,
was about to
his
grab
gaze
the
swept
dragon
across
vine.
the crowd.
Suddenly,
He sensed
another
the familiar
ugly
aura.
crutch flew
When his
out
gaze
from the
swept
other
past
side of the
Muyu, he
void
frowned
and repelled
However,
the withered hand.
he did not
The majestic
recognize
spiritual
Muyu, as he
power
was in
shot out
disguise.
and
His
destroyed
gaze
the
landed on
entire
Fairy
auction
Ming
hall.
Xian.
You can't take the
of
dragon
Jade Set.
vine for nothing.
At this moment,
Old Monster
Fairy Ming
another
Xian
severed
had
soul
already
stage
entered
Old
the
Monster
floating immortal
also
island.
made a move.
Luo Shang's
Zhuang
gaze
Hong
was
Hong.
somewhat deep.
You dare to
as he
compete
looked
with
at
this
Fairy
old man
Ming
for the dragon
Xian.
vine? Old Monster
Luo
Wu's
Shang
angry
turned around
voice
and
sounded
continued
in the
to
void.
fly
His
towards
figure did not
floating
appear,
immortal island.
and no one knew what he
Shimin
looked
Wuji
like.
followed behind
However,
him.
when
Lu
Lu
Feng
Feng wanted
wanted
to
to
Monster
catch up,
Wu,
but in
and
the
Zhuang
end, he
Hong
stopped
came
in his
out.
tracks.
Everyone's
Lu
expression
Feng
changed.
was actually defeated.
These two were
Who was
once
this person?
famous seniors in the
Who was
cultivation
this
world.
Luo Shang?
They were also
He told Flowing
itinerant
Wind
cultivators
that Flowing
who were
Wind
overlords of
is
a region.
not Shimin Wuji's
After being
opponent.
silent for
This
so
Shimin
many
Wuji
years,
didn't
they
even
thought
make
that
a
they were
move
already
himself.
lying in their
And he wants to
coffins.
convince us
Unexpectedly,
with just these words.
the appearance of the
know?
dragon vine.
Why would the people of the
lifted their
evil faction
coffins.
care about
You
whether
two are
or not
really
other
impatient.
people believe in them?
Another
In
old
their
woman's
eyes,
voice sounded.
these things are all
His voice
false
was very
reputation.
strange. Shimin
Everyone
Wuji
could
doesn't
imagine
care about
that it
how
came
he
from
viewed
an
him.
old woman.
Muyu
with a
stepped on his
mouth
flying
full of
sword
teeth.
and flew
How can I not be
towards
impatient?
Luo Shang.
Where is the
If he didn't
dragon
chase
vine?
now,
I
when
thought
would
you
he-
all went to the king of
Shimin
hell
Wuji
to
stop
report.
right there.
A gloomy
Don't go.
voice
Luo
echoed in
Shang.
the sky.
Muyu shouted
couldn't
as he
help
chased
but
after
click
them.
his tongue.
He didn't want to
How
call
many old
Luo
monsters
Shang's
are
second
coveting
senior
the
brother,
dragon vine?
because in his heart
There were only a
he didn't
few
think
who
of
made a
Luo
move,
Shang,
and
as
he
his
didn't know
second
how
senior
many
brother.
more had
In
not
fact,
made a move.
if he did call
He
him
really had
second
8
senior
lifetimes
brother,
of bad
it might
luck.
attract
How could he
Luo
encounter
Shang's attention.
such a deceptive
Luo
situation?
Shang and Shimin
Nascent
Wuji
soul stage
saw that he was a
cultivators were
stranger
already
from the Jindan
difficult
period,
enough to deal
so they
with,
didn't stop at all,
let alone
Instead,
out-of-body
they
stage
entered
cultivators.
floating immortal
Now,
island
there were a
in the
few
blink of an eye.
spirit-severing
On the other
stage
hand,
cultivators.
Muyu was stopped by
How
two
could he,
guards, who was still
Damn
in
it.
the Jindan
Are they
period,
pretending not to know me?
escape happily.
Muyu
was a little angry. Big brother,
There's so
I
many
can't
of us.
recognize you even
How
if
are we
you
going to
disguise
split a
yourself
dragon
like
vine?
this. Then let's
Little
see
Schwein
who's
muttered.
better.
Muyu
I've long
touched his
disliked
face
you
in
guys.
annoyance.
One death
He had
means
forgotten
one
about
less
this matter.
person. He was
I
just
like
a
this
rookie from the
decision.
Jindan period.
Muyu didn't know
How could
which
he let them
old
stop?
monster said
If he had
ever
revealed
since.
his original
Anyways,
appearance, they
it
were
would have
all
been
hiding
fine.
their heads. and
Unfortunately,
tails. He had to
only
run
their
away from
voices
those
could be
unknown
heard.
people.
There was no
and
room
didn't
for
have
him
time
to
to
remove
intervene
his
at all.
disguise.
He only
Now
felt
that
that
the
the surrounding
surrounding
void
void
was
he had to
constantly
sneak in a
shaking.
floating
It seemed that
immortal
these
island.
old monsters
There was only
were
one
really
entrance
going
to
to fight
floating
without
immortal
any
island.
hesitation, and it was
Wave
guarded
after
by
wave
nascent
of
soul
dangerous
cultivators.
aura
If he
swept
flew
over
in
him.
from any other
If he was
place,
swept by it,
he would be
there would be
blocked by
nothing
an
left
array.
of him.
Without
He had
an
to think of a way to
invitation,
leave this place.
no one was allowed to
The
enter
spirit
entrance.
array has been destroyed.
Those who entered were all
Little
famous
famous
young
young
people.
It could
Muyu
control
didn't
the
have
flow
the
of
strength
spirit
of a
chi,
nascent
but it still
soul
didn't
cultivator.
have the ability
Even if he
to
disguised
control
himself
the
as
spirit
anyone,
chi of
he would
the
be
spirit array.
exposed. However,
What do you think they're
when
doing
the
in
spirit
floating
array was
immortal
destroyed
island?
by the terrifying
Is there a lot of good
aura
food
of
inside?
these old
Little Schwei
monsters?
asked,
It
puzzled.
immediately
Probably.
sensed it. Muyu
Let's
walked
go.
back dejectedly.
Run towards the trees.
There were so many people during
Muyu
the
shouted.
day.
As
It would be
long as
too
they entered the
obvious,
trees,
even if he
it would be a
managed to
lot
sneak in.
easier.
Of
The
course,
dragon
it was
vine
best to
roared,
do things
got
that
up,
couldn't be
and
seen
directly
in public at
flew
night.
outside.
The owner of Floating
back.
Immortal Island,
We haven't even
was
decided the
Huai
victor.
Huai
and you dare
Baiwan
to run
was
away?
a very business-minded
The old
person.
woman discovered
His favorite
the
thing to
dragon vine's
do
intention.
was to invest
The tattered
in the
dress
future young
flew
people
out
of
from
the
the void.
cultivation world.
The dress
Making
grew as it
friends
was
with the
blown
current
by the
talents
wind
was
and
directly
directly
slapped
to creating
the
an
10-meter-long
extra
dragon
dragon
vine
protection
ground
for his business,
trapping the dragon vine.
After
the dragon
all,
vine,
these young
kept
talents
struggling,
were basically
but it
the
found that it
pillars
couldn't
of the
break
cultivation
free
world
from this
in the
tattered
future.
and smelly dress.
If he owed Huai
This
Baiwan
dress
favor,
was a
it would
high-grade
be a huge
artifact,
fortune for him,
and it wasn't something
Huai
the dragon
Baiwan
vine
didn't hesitate
could
to
break
spend
free
a
from.
huge amount of money.
How long has
to
it been
build
since
this
this
man-made
old
island,
which washed clothes?
He auctioned off all
Has she
kinds
lost
of
the
rare
virtue
treasures
of
on the
being
island.
hygienic?
Even rare herbs
Muyu
that were
smelled
hard to come
a sour
by
stench
in 100
coming from the
years
dress,
could be found
causing
here.
him to retch.
Sometimes
that
when he
pungent
saw the
smell
potential
almost
of
made him
someone,
cry. He would even
It's
give
over.
the item away.
How are we going to escape?
Of course,
We were all
this was
killed
an
by the
extremely extremely
big
rare
earthworms.
situation.
Those who
Little
were able to
Schwei
catch his
also
eye were
covered its
those
little
with
nose.
extraordinary
There was a
talents.
strange,
They were
suffocating
geniuses among
smell
geniuses
coming from this dress.
Many things that were
Little
hard to find in
Schwei
the
had
world
been
could be
eating
found
until
here.
it was full,
Because only
and it felt that
nascent
it was
soul
only a
youths could
matter
enter
of
this
time
place.
before it vomited
Many
the
of the
food
invited
from
youths
last
came
night.
with a mission
Muyu
of
drilled
purchasing
out of the
certain
dragonvine's
treasure
body
from their sections
and tried to lift a corner of
Muyu
the
turned
dress.
into a forest.
However,
After
the
passing
dress was
through
too
this
heavy,
forest,
and he
he
couldn't
would be
lift
able
it
to
at all.
return to the town.
Muyu stepped on the
He
ground
needed to go
again.
back and
This was
rest
a
for a
solid
while.
diamond rock.
He'll make plans at
and
night.
Muyu couldn't
At
do
this
anything
moment,
about it.
he suddenly
Muyu
heard
couldn't hack it
some
with his sword
people
either.
shouting.
He
in
wanted
the
to try the
depths of
sword
forest.
intent of the broken
There were
sword,
also waves
but he didn't
of
dare to
earth-shattering
use it.
roars.
This kind of
Dragon
move that hurt
roars,
the enemy
Little
by
Schwei
1,000,
suddenly
but
raised
also
his
hurt
head.
himself
Dragon
by
Muyu
800.
had never seen what a
Not to
dragon
mention
looked
whether
like
he could
before.
break this
In
tattered
fact,
dress.
it wasn't just him.
Even if he
Most
went
people
out,
in the
his
cultivation
hand would be
world had
crippled.
never seen
At
a
that
dragon
time,
before.
the chances
let
would be
alone
even
heard a
slimmer.
dragon's roar.
Just when Muyu
Dragons
was
were
at
a
his wits'
noble
end,
demonic beast.
a corner of the
They had
dress
powerful
was suddenly
combat
lifted,
abilities.
and an old
Ordinary
man's
spirit
voice came
beasts
in.
and
Come
demonic
out, beasts were no match for them. However, Mu Yu was
always
overjoyed
existed in legends.
and hurriedly drilled
No one had
out,
ever seen a
and the
real
dragon vine.
It was said that
also
the demon
followed.
race once
Don't-
had a
don't
demon
talk.
king.
Who was a
Xiao Xiao,
dragon.
be careful.
However,
The place
the
where
demon
Mu Yu
race
came
had
out
disappeared
just
for many
happened to be
years.
facing an
No
exit.
one knew if that
He
dragon
glanced
was
at the
still
stuttering
around.
old man.
It's a dragon's
The old
roar.
man had a long
I don't like
green
them.
beard and hair.
Little Shuai
He looked a bit
was
scary,
an unknown
and he actually
spirit
stuttered.
beast. It
Old
might have
master,
been born as rare
did
as a
you
dragon.
save us? Because
It might
you
even be
also
a
want the
mortal
dragon
enemy.
vine?
However,
Mu Yu asked warily.
Mu Yu thought
the green-haired
that little Shuai was a
old
spirit
man
beast
shook
that
his
only
head.
knew how to eat
No,
all
no.
day.
I saw that you
Compared to a
guys
dragon,
saw that we were
it was
handsome.
still too
Mu Yu
inexperienced.
continued.
Let's
No,
go
no.
catch it.
Yes,
I
yes.
haven't eaten
Saw that
roasted
I'm
dragon
handsome.
meat yet.
Little Shuai jumped onto Mu
ruled.
Yu's shoulder.
It was really not
The
picky
green-haired
about food.
old man
It
widened
dared
his
to eat
eyes
anything.
and looked
Don't let us
angrily
be
at these
eaten
two
later.
narcissistic
Although Mu
weirdos.
Yu said so,
It seemed that he
his
was
curiosity
unhappy
drove
because
him
he
to
was
want to see
interrupted.
what this legendary
Oh,
dragon
exit
looked
over
like.
there.
In
The
fact,
green-haired
he didn't
old
think
man
that he would be
decided
lucky enough
not
to
to
meet a
explain
dragon,
the reason,
especially in this kind of
a
place where he could
Thank you,
bump
old
into
master.
people at any time.
Mu Yu hurriedly
How could a
ran
dragon
towards the exit.
live peacefully?
Mu Yu ran a few steps.
Mu Yu immediately
stopped.
jumped into
He
the
turned
trees
around
and
asked,
rushed in the direction.
"You really
of the
don't
sound."
have any ulterior
After running
motives?
for a while,
But
he came
just
out
as he
from the
turned
branches.
around.
In front of him, realized
open
that the
space.
green-haired old
The ground was a
man had
mess.
disappeared. It was full of
Did I
messy,
see a ghost
broken
in broad
branches and
daylight?
leaves.
Mu Yu looked
It
around
was as if a
and
large-scale
did not
battle
see
had
any
happened
trace
here.
of the old
Mu
man.
Yu felt that there
Aye,
should have
let's
been
go.
trees here.
Why
in
are
the
you
beginning.
talking so much nonsense?
It was destroyed
Little
by
Shuai
an unknown
urged.
thing.
Mu Yu
It
scratched
looked like
his
it was
head in
formed
confusion,
not long ago,
and then jumped
over
onto
there.
the dragon
Mu
vine.
Yu followed the trail.
The dragon
and ran
vine
over.
carried him
The
out of
broken
the passage
branches
and
and
arrived
leaves
at the
extending
floating
to the right.
immortal island.
He also saw
Above
some
the
blood
floating
stains.
immortal
He didn't know
island.
what kind of
The
creature
young
it was.
geniuses were
Catch it.
watching from afar.
Don't let it escape.
As soon as Mu Yu
No,
came
this
out
dragon
on the
vine
vine
is too
he
strong.
realized that
Go to
something
floating
was wrong.
immortal island.
He was
and get
directly
help.
exposed.
We can't
in
subdue
front of
everyone.
everyone.
It
Everyone
actually
was
turned
still
into
in
a
shock
dragon
because of
we
the
need to get an
appearance
out-of-body
of the severed
stage
soul
expert
stage
to
hell
help.
monster. They should be
When
on
they
their
saw
way.
Mu Yu
A
flying out
chaotic
on the
sound
dragon
came,
vine,
mixed
they
with
were
some
stunned for a
people's
few
angry
seconds.
shouts. No
Mu
one
Yu
understood
pushed away
how
the
the
leaves in
imprisoned
front of him.
dragon vine
He was stunned by
could
the
escape
scene
from
in
the
front of him.
hands of the
He
severed
was shocked
soul
to see
stage
4 or
monster.
5 middle-aged
particular,
nascent
there was a
soul
young
stage
man
cultivators
riding on the dragon
attacking
vine's
a
neck.
huge green dragon.
Speaking of which,
the huge
where did this
dragon
young man
roared
come
and
from?
swung its
Could he be
long
a
tail
severed
from time to
soul
time.
stage?
This huge
old
dragon
monster
was
who had
10
regained
meters
his youth?
long, and as
He is the
thick
one who
as
was
a pillar.
eaten by the
Its body
dragon
was
vine.
huge.
He is still
It had
alive.
a fierce head
A
with
few of
2
Beiya's
horns that
subordinates
pointed
had
to the
seen
sky.
Mu Yu being
It had a pair
swallowed
of
by the
large
dragon
green
vine.
eyes,
One of
and
them
4
a
dragon
burly
claws.
man with a
There were
curly
many
beard.
deep wounds
recognized
on its
Mu
body,
Yu,
but
a
no
young man
blood
from the
flowed
Jindan
out.
period
On the
was
contrary,
riding on the dragon
the
vine's
nascent
neck.
soul stage
Who was this
cultivators
young
who
man?
tried to subdue
He was still
and were all
alive
injured.
after being eaten
Mu Yu
by
was
the
not
dragon
surprised
vine,
because
and
it was
seemed
his
that he
first
had
time
tamed the
seeing a
dragon
dragon.
vine.
It was
Only
because
one of
he
the eight
realized
sects,
that this
the
dragon
earthly
was actually a
emperor's sect,
dragon
could
vine.
do this.
In other
Everyone
words,
turned to
the
look at
dragon
Xing
vine
Gao
that had
from
lived
the
for an
earthly
unknown
emperor's
number
sect.
of years.
He was the genius who had
into a
tamed
living
the
bear of the
dragon-shaped
earth at the
monster
ninth
beast.
heaven of the nascent
Plants that
soul
could move
stage
were
when he
very
had
rare.
just entered
The living
nascent soul
vines
stage.
and aquatic plants in the withered tree valley,
Xing Gao
as
knew
well as
what
the
everyone
celestial
was
demon
thinking,
tree,
but he shook
were
his
very
head
rare
and
in
denied
the
it.
cultivation.
I don't know this person.
Needless to say,
Catch the dragon
this
vine.
dragon vine
But he was
was
also
very
watching from the
precious.
outside. Mu Yu
She
had
felt
heard
the
of the
humble
dragon
Jindan
vine from his
period
master
spiritual
before.
power
The dragon vine was a
on
plant
Mu
that
Yu's
grew
body.
into the shape
She was
of a
the first to
dragon
react
as it grew
and
older.
rush towards Mu Yu.
Normally, dragon
Oh,
vines would not
the stuttering
move.
old man
They only had the
said
shape
that
of a
this was
dragon,
the exit,
but could not
but he
move.
didn't say how many
It was a
people were
very
here.
rare herb.
Mu Yu had a
but
headache.
it was not hard
In the
to find.
face of so many
Legend
people
had it
in the
that
nascent
after
soul
10,000
stage,
years of growth,
even 10 of him
the dragon
wouldn't be
vine
enough to
would
escape.
transform
Shimin
into
Wuji
a real
and Luo
moving
Shang
dragon.
were also
The
in the crowd.
10,000 years of
They also
life force
recognized
that it
Mu
had
Yu
accumulated
and were very
gave it an
surprised.
extremely powerful
Brother Luo
combat
Shang.
strength.
This kid wanted
As
to find
long
you
as
when
it
you were
could
in Lan Chi
survive
City.
the weak period
I didn't
of
expect him to
transforming
sneak
into
in.
a dragon.
Do you know this person?
It could fight with
Shimin
an
Wuji
out-of-body
asked.
stage cultivator.
Luo
right from
Shang
the start.
frowned.
This was
He
an
didn't
antique
understand
that had lived
why Mu
for
Yu didn't look for
10,000
him
years.
after leaving
These
the
people
Moyen
found this
range.
dragon vine
Instead,
deep in the mountains.
he appeared here.
At that
With
time,
his strength
it was
in the
still
G-Man
immobile
period
and had not
running into a
reached the
group
stage
of
young
transforming
transforming
into a
nascent
dragon.
soul stage.
Unexpectedly
Was
courting
on the way
death.
to the floating
He's my junior
immortal
brother.
island to be
Protect him
auctioned.
first.
The dragon
Luo
vine
Shang's
suddenly
figure
transformed
flashed
into
blocked
a
in
real
front
dragon.
of Baya.
Although
Do
it
you
had
really
just
know him?
transformed
I
into
thought
a
he was
dragon
joking.
and did not
Shiman
display
Wuji
full
rolled
strength.
his eyes.
It was still not
Although
something
he
that
and
these
Luo
nascent
Shang
soul
had
stage
extraordinary
cultivators
skills
could deal with,
and could easily
a dragon
defeat
vine
everyone
that has
present.
lived for
But if so many
10,000
people
years,
joined hands to deal with them,
the two
I'm
of them
afraid
wouldn't
that
be able
not
to handle
many
it.
people in the world
However,
have seen it before.
Shiman Wuji
Muyu
still
muttered.
chose to make
This was a
a
good
move
thing.
without
He did not
hesitation.
expect that Muyu
His
would come
temperament was
across him.
casual.
I'm sure
This
no
kid
one
was
has
able to
eaten it
tame the
before.
dragon vine,
Little Shuai
which
happily
showed that he was
gestured at the
extraordinary.
dragon vine's thick
In addition,
thigh,
Luo
wondering if it
Shang
would
said
taste
that he was
better
his junior
if it was
brother,
roasted whole
so he needed
or
to make
boiled.
a move.
Roar.
Luo Shang,
Although
what
the
do you
dragon
mean?
vine
Bea
was
asked,
not afraid
"Do you want
of
to
these
snatch the
nascent
dragon
soul
vine?
stage
You
cultivators.
can't touch this person."
It had just transformed,
Luo Shang
and its
said.
form was not
The dragon
stable.
vine belongs
These
to our
nascent
million
soul
star
stage
firm.
cultivators
Several
were
people
also
in the
very
nascent
strong.
soul stage appeared
Their quick
behind
attacks
Bea.
caused the
The
dragonized
dragonized
dragon
to
vine
suffer
a great
intelligent.
loss.
At
If
this
it is
time,
willing
it was
to let
already
someone ride
seriously
on its
injured.
neck,
It was
means
afraid
that it would be
recognizes this
captured
person.
even before
Luo
the
Shang's
out-of-body
tone
stage
was
cultivators
very
came.
unyielding.
The dragon vine
It seems that the
suddenly
dragon vine
turned
has
its
been
head
tamed
towards
by
the
my
dense
brother-in-law,
forest where
Shimonwuji
Muyu was.
also appeared
Muyu
in
was
front of
shocked.
Bea.
He did not know
and
how he was
gracefully
discovered.
bowed to Bea.
The dragon vine roared
Shimonwuji,
again.
you
To
shameless
others,
bastard.
it was just a loud
How many
roar,
people have you
but to
called
Muyu
your
it was a
brother-in-law?
different sound.
Muyu
Save
rode
me.
the dragon
Oh,
vine and quickly rushed
saved
to
you?
their side. He wasn't surprised that Luo Shang was willing
Chapter
to stand up for him.
168.
Although this
Muyu had
cold
seen
and
too many
energetic
non-human
second senior
beings
brother
that could speak,
didn't have much
such as
interaction
Yuan
with him.
and the Yao
They were
clan.
still from the
Not to
same
mention
set.
Xiao Shuai,
Especially
who jumped
when
out from the
Feng
spiritual
Haochen had
Qi.
told them to help
The
each other
legendary
when they went out.
dragons did
Shimonwuji
not speak the human
flicked his
language.
hair. They had their own
lazily
language.
said.
So when Muyu
How
found
many
out
people
that
want
he
to be
could
my
understand the
brother-in-law?
dragon roar
I didn't
of the
agree.
dragon vine,
You are such a
he was a little
pretentious
surprised.
child. You have
But
taken
being
advantage of
surprised
me,
was one
and yet
thing.
you still want to
How
pretend
could
to be
he?
obedient.
A rookie in the Jindan period saved such a huge monster in front of so many nascent soul
Chapter
stage cultivators.
173.
Don't mess around.
Many people
He
chose
had
to
problems
wait and
protecting
see.
himself.
This was
How
still
could he
floating
escape?
immortal
There was no
island's
way he
territory.
could escape, so they wouldn't
These
blatantly
days, there
try
were
to
more than
snatch
one
the dragon
or two
vine.
nascent
They also
soul
wouldn't
stage
choose to help
cultivators who wanted to
floating
catch him.
immortal island.
His aura would
This
be
was
locked
million-dollar
on by the
trading
nascent
companies'
soul
own
stage
business.
cultivators.
If the dragon
no matter
vine
where he
left
ran,
floating
they would
immortal
be able to
islands
catch him.
territory,
Every time
then
he
they would have a
escaped from the
reason to
nascent
fight
soul
for it.
stage cultivators.
How could Bea agree?
He had to rely
She was already
on
a little
trees
upset
to escape.
today.
It
would
was
be
fine if a
strange
spirit
if
severing
he could
stage
escape
with
with
this
this
monster
huge
came to
monster.
snatch her things.
When the dragon
But even a
vine roared at
Jindan
Muyu,
stage brat came
it
to
also
join the
attracted
fun.
the attention
How could she
of
endure
the other
this?
nascent soul
Million-dollar
stage
trading
cultivators.
company
When they
spent
saw
a
that it was
lot
just
of
a
resources
Jindan period
to
brat
catch
who
this
was poking his
dragon
head out,
vine
they
from the
immediately
mountains.
shouted
It originally
impatiently
belonged to us.
Brat
Could it
scrammed
be
that
that
you
you
don't
don't
treat your wife
as they spoke,
They waved the
just because
magic
she
weapons
was
in
kidnapped,
their hands,
adding
Muyu
a few
swallowed
more
a
wounds
mouthful
to the
of
dragon
saliva.
vine's body.
Who would have thought
One of
that
the
Bea
wounds
was
even
used
almost cut
such a
off its
vulgar
tail?
excuse?
It was a ghastly
This woman was
sight.
really fierce.
Be careful, don't kill
However,
it.
one
This
of the
nascent
analogy
soul stage
clearly showed her
cultivators
position.
saw that the
dragon
dragon
vine
vine belonged
almost
to them,
lost its tail,
and they couldn't just
and
hand it over
quickly
to someone
shouted
else
to his
just
companions.
because the dragon
Save
vine
me.
was taken away.
The dragon
by
vine
someone
roared
else.
again and
I will.
pounced towards Muyu.
Shimonwuji,
Only Muyu could understand this
subconsciously
voice,
said,
and maybe
when
Xiao
Muyu
Shuai.
heard
Shimonwuji's
"Do you really want to save it?"
irresponsible words,
Xiao Shuai
he
looked
almost
at the
fell
dragon
down.
vine.
Was
with
this guy a
interest.
pig?
Just as
Shimonwuji
the
had
dragon
always
vine
said
pounced
whatever he
over.
wanted to say.
It was hit by a
and his
curly
mouth
bearded
was
man's
faster than his
axe.
brain.
Fiercely
After he
falling into
reacted,
the branch Muyu
he
was
promptly
hiding
said
in,
to the
and
onlooking
heavily
female
throwing Muyu to
cultivators
the
with a
side.
mischievous smile,
Brat,
if you don't
but
want
for
to
you
die,
beauties,
quickly
I won't.
leave here.
Bah,
The curly
the
beauty
bearded
spat
man
at
said
Shimonwuji
fiercely,
and then
"Sorry,
turned their faces
I was just
away.
passing by."
Two out-of-body stage
Muyu crawled up
cultivators
and quickly
appeared
smiled
behind Bea.
apologetically.
They were
He hated
million-dollar
looking
trading
for trouble
company's
most.
patriarch.
Usually,
it was trouble that came looking for him. I want to see how you guys are going to
save
walk
the
out
dragon
of
vine,
floating,
but he didn't have the
immortal
ability
island
to
today.
do so.
Bea's attitude
At this
was
moment,
very tough,
and even more
with her father
powerful
here,
aura
this matter would be
enveloped the
easy
area.
to handle.
Muyu had
No matter
once
how
felt
strong
this
Luo
aura
Shang
from medicine
was,
grandmaster.
he was only
This
a
was the
nascent
aura
soul
of an
stage
out-of-body
cultivator.
stage expert.
He was no match
Fuxian
for
Island's
out-of-body
reinforcements
stage
had
cultivators.
arrived.
Save me.
Baiwan walked
The dragon
forward with a
vine
smile,
let out
and
a politely
mournful
cupped
howl.
his hands.
Its eyelids
This nephew
drooped.
must be the first
Clearly,
person to
it
walk
was a
out of
spent
the
arrow.
withered tree valley.
Muyu clenched his fists.
Sure enough, the dragon
Heroes
vine
come
could
from the
sense
young.
that he had
Many
the ability
nascent
to
soul
control
stage
it,
cultivators
so it asked
couldn't
him walk
help.
out of the withered
could he
tree
save it?
valley. It was
But
already
you, a
difficult to
Jindan
deal
stage
with the
cultivator,
Yuanian
walked out.
cultivator. The
Let
younger
alone
generation
an
will
out-of-body
surpass us
cultivator.
in time. Should they save him?
Muyu was
or
stunned.
not?
How
Muyu
did
fell
Huai
into a
Baiwan know
difficult
about this?
situation. Old Tan might not even know
After all,
that he had
the
walked
dragon
out of the
vine
withered
had
tree
its own
valley.
consciousness.
So how did he know?
Muyu couldn't
In other
bear
words,
to see it being
how
refined
did Huai
into a pill.
Baiwan know?
However,
he was the one who
he suddenly
walked out of the
remembered that the
withered tree
dragon
valley
vine
was a type
What?
of plant.
He walked
All
into the
plants could be
withered tree
controlled by
valley
him.
during
He
the
could
Jindan assimilate with the dragon. The surrounding people were shocked when they heard the dragon vine would be captured and brought. They more or less knew what kind of place. He was just worried that he wouldn't be able to enter. Eat me, Muyu whispered to the dragon vine. Their sex would tell them that they were not allowed to set foot. He was still thinking about eating the dragon because it was impossible for a nascent dragon vine to eat him. Eat me, Muyu repeated. However, he let out a series of muttering sounds that were spread like wildfire in the vicinity. He didn't even know when he learned the dragon language. Named Muyu had actually obtained cultivators couldn't understand what Muyu was officially became the dragon vine hesitated for a moment. At first, suddenly, everyone doubted it used the last of its strength to pounce. How could a person in the Jindan its mouth was wide enough to swallow that even a nascent soul-stage cultivator, the bearded man shouted. But today,
However,
this sentence came
Mu
from
Yu was
Huai
swallowed by the
Baiwan's
dragon
mouth.
vine.
Everyone knew
any
what kind of person
resistance.
Huai Baiwan
The dragon
was.
vine
As
let
a
out a
businessman,
whimper, and
he was
finally
naturally
fell to the
very
ground.
well informed.
As soon as
His
Mu
words
Yu
also
entered the dragon
confirmed the
vine's
authenticity
stomach,
of this
he
news.
immediately
This kid was able to
assimilated
walk
with
out
it.
of the withered
The
tree
dragon
valley
vine's body
and
trembled.
tamed the dragon
It realized
vine.
that its
Is this
body
really
would be
something
controlled
that a
by
Jin
Mu
Dan
Yu
period
at any
cultivator
time.
can do?
Mu Yu really
Everyone
wanted to
was
save the dragon
discussing
vine.
spiritedly.
However,
Everyone was
he didn't have
curiously
the
sizing
ability
up
to
Mu
save
Yu.
it directly.
Many people still did
Therefore,
not believe
he
it.
chose to create
Mu
the
Yu himself
illusion that
did
he was
not
being
understand
swallowed
how
by
this
the dragon
news had
vine
spread.
and wait
No wonder
for an
someone had been
opportunity
following him
to
for
help
the
the
past
dragon
few
vine
days.
escape.
So this was
Your
the
method
case.
is too
He just did not
risky.
know who would do
What if this
this.
guy is taken
Could
to
it
be
really be Old
refined
Tan?
into a pill?
Could it be that Old
Wouldn't we be
Tan
dead?
was that
Little
withered
Shuai
tree
said
evergreen,
unhappily.
and he was the one who
It should be
released this
auctioned.
news? We can
But
use
also
this
did not make
opportunity to
sense.
sneak
If
into
Old Tan
Fu
was
Xian Island.
withered tree
Mu Yu
evergreen,
said the
why
dragon
would he let him
vine had
obtain
already fallen
the heavenly
into a
demon
deep sleep
fruit
so
he was severely
easily,
injured,
and even let him
and it
loot
was
his
currently
residence
in its
so
weakest
happily.
period.
There was no
brother-in-law,
chance for it to escape
I didn't expect
alone.
you to be
The out-of-body
so
stage
powerful.
expert
Shimin
landed
Wuji
beside
flew
the dragon
over
vine
and
He
patted
was an
Mu
old
Yu's
man
shoulder.
in his 50s
It was so
with a ruddy
painful that
complexion.
Mu Yu almost
Beside
kicked
him was a cold
How did you
and
know?
beautiful
Mu Yu
woman
frowned
who looked to
and
be
asked
in her
Huai
20s.
Baiwan.
She was dressed
Looking
in
at the
pink
reaction of the people
and looked
around him.
mature.
Some of
Her
them
body
seemed to know
was
about this
curvaceous.
matter.
She
But
was
it
also
seemed that
in
he
the
was the
nascent
only
soul
one who
stage.
did not know.
Elder G,
What? Miss
Nephew,
Vaya,
you don't know it
this
yourself.
dragon vine,
Senior
swallowed
withered
kid from
tree
the
has
Jin Dan
spread your
period
image
before it
to the
fell.
organization.
A nascent soul
silhouette
stage
being.
guard walked over.
Now many people
and
are looking
reported
for you.
respectfully.
They want to catch you
Since this
and bring
dragon
you back
vine
to
has
senior
already
withered
transformed
tree to
into
get the
a
reward.
reward. Its value will have to be
said with a
reevaluated.
smile.
You have done well this
It
time.
turned out
I
that
will
the
report
people who were
this to
chasing
the
Mu
family
Yu
head.
these days with
Elder
the
G
so-called
nodded
silhouette
with
being
satisfaction.
organization.
He didn't even
He didn't know
bother
what
to
kind of
mention the
organization
fact
the
that a
silhouette
Jin
being
Dan
was,
period
but it
cultivator
seemed that they were
had been
not
swallowed.
easy to deal with.
In their eyes,
It was really
this
funny that he
dragonized
didn't even
dragon
know
vine was
that he
already
was a wanted
very
criminal.
valuable.
He was
It
really
didn't matter
lucky
if
to
a
be
kid
able
from
to
the Jin
avoid
Dan period
so
died.
many people's
How
pursuit.
could compare to this
Then
dragon
you are
vine?
also chasing me? Mu Yu
Elder
asked.
G,
Huai Baiwan
the dragon
laughed.
vine itself,
Nephew,
is
what
a
are you talking
rare
about?
item.
Although
And
I
a
have been looking
dragon
for you
vine that is
everywhere,
transformed
I just want to
into a
invite
dragon
you
is
to our
even
Fu
harder
Xian
to come
Island as a
by in
guest.
10,000
However,
years.
my
Since it
subordinates
has already
didn't do a good
become a
job.
dragon,
No one could
it
find
has
you.
entered the ranks
I didn't
of
expect
spirit
that
beasts.
nephew could
Are
come
we still
in
going to sell
without
it
an
as a
invitation.
medicinal
It
ingredient?
really surprised me.
Miss Beiya's voice was pleasing to the ears.
This is your
and was
invitation.
full of magnetism.
You're the first person
She
who was
even
invited
twisted
to
her body
our
as
Fu
she
Xian
spoke,
Island,
causing the
during
man
Jin
to
Dan period.
blush.
Huai Baiwan
Wow.
handed a
Compared to
bright
this big
red
sister's
invitation
twin
card
peaks,
inlaid with gold to Mu
Roannas
Yu,
are only
and then
considered
said,
flat.
Nephew,
Little Shuai,
you are so
kept muttering
outstanding
that
that
her bulging
you
front
can even
was
tame the
much
dragon
bigger than
vine.
Roannas.
Then
Mu Yu
I,
looked at his own
Huai
hand.
Baiwan,
He had touched
will
a
take
flat
advantage
area
of the
before.
situation.
The
and
family
give the
head
dragon
will
vine
make
to you
the
for
decision.
free.
Let's bring it
Huai
back
Baiwan's
first.
words
Tomorrow
caused
is
the
the
surrounding
auction.
people
We'll see
to
how
look
it
at him
goes.
with jealousy.
Elder G
He was really
waved
generous.
his sleeves.
The
and a
dragon
powerful
vine that was
force
worth
bound the
90
dragon
million was
vine
given
tightly.
away.
So
Then he
easily.
brought the dragon vine in
Dad,
the air.
Baya
and
looked at her
flew
father
towards the
making
floating
such a decision
immortal island,
and was suddenly
Miss Baya
unhappy.
and the others
However,
followed
Huai
closely
Baiwan
behind.
stopped her.
Mu Yu
and
could now
didn't let
control
her
the
continue.
dragon vine's body.
I'm giving you the
He
dragon
planned to
vine.
let the dragon
Whether you
vine
can protect
pretend
it
to be
or
dead
not depends
after
on your
entering
luck.
the floating
Huai Baiwan
immortal island,
said with a
so that they would
smile.
let their guard
Mu
down.
Yu suddenly understood
Then
what
he would
this
find a
old
chance to
fox
sneak
was
out.
planning.
The
Mu Yu could
appearance
see
of a
everything
spirit
outside
severing
while
stage
he
was
was
in
in
the
the
dragon
dragon
vine's
that
body.
even Huai
He looked down
Baiwan
at the
couldn't
floating
protect
immortal island
the
from
dragon
high up
vine
in the sky.
safely today.
It was a huge
Mu Yu
island.
had so much
The island
potential,
was overgrown
and his
with
future
trees
was limitless.
and fake mountains.
If he gave the dragon
Birds
vine
and
away,
beasts flew
he could make
in
Mu Yu
and
own
out
from
favor.
time to time.
If
In the
Mu Yu
middle of the
became
island
successful in
was
the
a
future,
huge palace.
he could make friends
It
with
was
people like
golden
Mu Yu.
and dazzling.
Even if the dragon
It was
vine
majestic
taken
and
away
grand.
by a
That should be the
spirit-severing
location of the
stage,
auction.
old monster
All
today.
kinds of pavilions
Mu Yu could
stood
only
around the
blame
palace.
himself for not
They were like
being
stars
able
in
to
the
protect
sky.
the dragon
They were
vine.
hidden in
Huai
the fake
Baiwan had
mountains
already
and
given it
trees.
away.
Occasionally,
He had received a a corner of the
favorite name.
eaves would be
Muyu
revealed.
couldn't say
It was a
anything
unique
wrong.
charm.
What
Thank you,
surprised
Boss
Muyu
Y.
the most
Although
was that he
Muyu
saw
knew about
water
Fly
flowing
Baiwan's
between the
thoughts,
fake mountains.
he couldn't say anything.
There was also a huge
Not to mention
lake
that the
above
other
floating
party was an
immortal
out-of-body
island.
stage expert.
The fake mountains
He
and
didn't stop
trees were
Muyu
built
from
on
leaving.
small islands.
This was a very
in the
good
lake.
thing for Muyu.
All the buildings were built on
Otherwise,
water.
With Muyu,
They were connected by
intricate
intricate
stone
stone
railings
of two
and
nascent
small
soul
bridges.
stage experts.
The water
How
flowed
could he
from one
escape
side of the
Fly
island
Baiwan
to the
but at the
floating
same time,
immortal lake below.
the trouble was not over,
forming a small
diffuse spirit
waterfall.
severing stage,
How extravagant.
old monsters who were
Muyu
still
couldn't help
fighting
but exclaim.
didn't seem to
He
notice
didn't know
that
how
the
much
dragon
money
vine
and
had
manpower
escaped.
were spent
No
on
one
the
dared to
construction
tell
of
them
this
about
lake.
it, for
The water
fear
was
of
drawn
being
from the
swept
floating immortal
by the
lake
powerful
to the
spiritual
floating
chi
immortal
fluctuations.
And then
Fly
flowed back
Baiwan
to the
publicly
lake.
announced that
The
he would
man-made
give
island
the dragon
itself
vine
was
to
supported
Muyu,
by a huge
which meant that the
amount of
surrounding
spiritual
nascent
energy.
soul stage
Only the
experts
rich
had a
Fly
reason to fight
Baiwan
for it.
could maintain
on a floating
such a
immortal
large
island.
island.
They wouldn't make a
Muyu was
move
brought to
because
an
of Fly
elegant
Baiwan.
pavilion by
But if they left the
Elder G.
floating
There was a
immortal island,
huge courtyard
then it
in
would be a
front of
good
the
time for
pavilion.
them to
A
make
willow
move.
tree.
Many
with
young
green
people looked
branches
at each other
hung
with
in
a
the middle of the
tacit
courtyard.
understanding. There were
Shimin
already
Wuji
3 people
might be a big
standing
trouble,
under the willow
and
tree.
Luo Shang couldn't be
The leader was a
underestimated.
middle-aged man,
But as long as
wearing
these
a
two
golden
people were
brocade robe.
entangled,
He had a
how
big
difficult
belly
would it be
and
to
a big
deal with
smile on his
Muyu
face
during the Jindan
He was
period?
slightly chubby.
In that case,
but he looked
we will
very
take our
kind.
leave.
This person
Muyu cupped
was
his
the
hands
wealthy
and
Huai
said,
Baiwan.
I won't see you
Greetings,
off. Family
Huai
head.
Baiwan nodded
Elder
and left
Ji
with his
nodded
people.
slightly.
Although Muyu
and
knew
carefully
that the
placed the
surrounding
dragon
people were
vine
eyeing
in
him
front of
covetously,
Huai Baiwan.
he couldn't stay
This
here.
is the dragon vine that has turned into a dragon.
Otherwise,
Huai Baiwan's
it would be
face
even more
was filled
difficult
with
for him to
surprise.
leave when
He had
old
lived for so
monsters
long
inside
and had
found
seen
out
all
that
kinds of
something
strange
wrong.
beasts.
Muyu was about
He had
to
seen
leave,
dragon vines
and
more
Luo
than 100
Shang
times.
also followed.
However,
he knew
this
the
was the
current
first time he
situation.
had seen a
If his
dragon
rash
vine that had
junior
turned
brother
into a dragon.
didn't accompany him.
Father,
He was
are you
afraid
that
that he wouldn't
surprised?
be able to live
Miss
for
Baya
more
was
than 2
Huai
hours
Baiwan's daughter.
after leaving the
She frowned.
immortal
Her father's reaction to
Shimin
Huai
Wuji was
Baiwan
just there to join
was a
in the
bit
fun.
strange.
So he also
Logically
followed.
speaking,
As soon as the
her
three
father
of them
who had
left,
seen the world
many
would
people
not
followed.
lose his
In a
composure
short
like
time,
this.
some people had
Baya,
already
you don't
formed an
understand.
alliance to
Do you know
deal
what the
with
most
three of them.
mysterious
How did you
spirit
run out?
beast in the world
Those
is?
old guys at the
It's the
separate
dragon.
soul stage.
The dragon
couldn't have
is
found
not a
you
pure
in
species,
escape,
right?
It is the final
Luo
form
Shang
of all
looked at the people
spirit
behind
beasts.
him. He wasn't
Looking at the
afraid
world,
of
the
being
number of
besieged,
spirit beasts
but he was
that can
worried
evolve
that he
into a
couldn't
dragon
protect
could
his
be
junior
counted
brother.
on one hand.
I don't know.
The conditions
There
for a
was a stuttering
dragon
old
vine
man
to turn
who
into a
secretly
dragon
helped me.
are very strict.
Muyu felt that for
Even
the
if it has
stuttering
lived
old
for
man to be able to
10,000
do
years,
this,
it
was
can't turn into a
certainly not
dragon
simple.
just because it wants
Unfortunately,
He
Huai
disappeared
Baiwan
too
said with a
quickly.
smile.
Then why didn't you
Bah,
come to find
my
me
final
after
form
leaving the
is not a
Luo
dragon.
Chin
What a
Mountain?
dragon?
This
Luo
fatty
Shang asked.
really doesn't know how to
Muyu
talk.
rolled his eyes.
Xiao
The way he
Shuai
left the
scratched his
Moyu
claws
claws
in
range was
dissatisfaction.
strange.
Then what is
And
your
even
final
he couldn't
form?
explain it.
Muyu asked
If it wasn't for
curiously.
Shimin
Me,
Wuji saying
the final
that Luo
form of
Shang
my
was here,
evolution, he
is
wouldn't have come
very
here to
handsome.
wander. Little mouse,
Muyu said,
the dragon
an
vine's
eyesore
voice
here.
suddenly
We have to
sounded.
talk in private.
Bah, Shimin
You're the
Wuji
little
was
mouse.
unhappy. Your whole family
What
are little
eyesore?
mice. Brother-in-law,
Xiao Shuai,
you haven't
angrily
even crossed
scratched
the river
inside
yet,
the dragon
and you want
vine's
to burn
body.
the bridge.
You're awake?
Isn't that too
Muyu
unkind?
asked.
The dragon
Now that
vine's
the enemy
body
had a
is in
vigorous
front of us.
life force.
Our family
should recover
should
very
be
quickly.
united to fight
Save
the
me.
enemy.
The
and
dragon
escape.
vine said
Who's your
again.
family? Do you only
Today,
know how to say this?
I heard that you're going to marry
Xiao
some woman.
Shuai asked, and you actually
Little mouse.
dared to have
The
ideas
dragon vine's
about
voice
Tianran.
was mixed with
If
a
it wasn't for
trace
the
of
fact that
disgust.
Muyu needed to
It seemed to be
rely
the
on
same
this guy.
as Xiao Shuai.
You really didn't want to stay
I must
with this
eat you.
thick-skinned guy.
Xiao Shuai opened his
Shimin
mouth
Wuji
and bit
made
down.
a helpless
The dragon
expression,
vine
then
twitched in
patted his
pain.
forehead.
Okay.
You can't blame
You guys stop
me
quarreling
for this matter.
We still have
Who would
to
have
save
thought
our
that my
energy
old man
and
find a
Miss
chance
Ming
to escape?
Exine's master were
Muyu
already
pried
betrothed
open
to each
Xiao
other before
before
they
his
were
mouth.
born.
The
The
people
people
had no other
outside
choice.
only heard
Little
the dragon
brother-in-law.
vine's dragon
You have to
roar.
believe me.
They did not
I
know
love
that the
little
dragon
sister
vine
Tianran
was quarreling
betrothed
with a
before they were
strange
born.
thing in its stomach.
Meng Xian
Everyone
is her
praised.
master's daughter.
It was also the
Don't the
first
women
time
of Jade
they
sect
heard a
generally
dragon roar.
never marry?
It was just
Muyu
that they
was
did
greatly
not
surprised.
understand what the dragon
Meng
vine was trying
Xian
to
is the
say.
illegitimate
Take good care
daughter
of
of
it
my
first.
master.
Spread the
and her
news that the
master.
dragon vine
This
will be
is a
auctioned
secret.
in 5 days.
Shimin Wuji said.
Why buy one?
Wait a
order?
minute. Setting
What
the
does
time
betrothal
5
before
days
they were
later
born have
was
to
to
do with
attract
you?
more attention.
Weren't you sold to
Presumably,
the brothel when you
the
were 8
dragon
years old?
vine that had turned
My
into a
old man
dragon
got
would
together
make
with
many
Meng
self-cultivators
Xian's
go
master.
crazy. This, of course, has something to do with me.
Father,
Is your old
are we
man
really going to
referring
sell
to your dead
such
father
a rare
or your
spirit
master?
beast?
Of course,
Why
it's my
Baya
old
was
man.
somewhat puzzled.
Otherwise, how
Baya,
could they be
you
betrothed
don't
before
understand.
they were born?
Things like
Then aren't
dragons
you
have
and
spirituality.
Xian half
The
siblings?
possibility of them being tamed is very small.
Oh no!
Even the people
I
of
was
the
wrong.
Earth
My
Emperor
old man
sect
was
could
referring to
not
my
tame them.
master.
Then what does the
very
betrothal
arrogant
have to do
and
with
disdain
you?
to be associated
Muyu knew
with
that Shimin Wuji was
Moreover,
talking nonsense.
It is said
again.
that they hold
This person's
grudges.
words were
It is
really
useless for us
unreliable,
to raise it.
full of
It is a
loopholes,
blessing to have
and
seen
even
such
he
a
couldn't
thing.
justify
Moreover,
himself.
we are
No
businessmen.
wonder his
Is
reputation
in line
was
with
so
our
bad.
style to auction.
If it was anyone else,
I
who was
believe that the
splashed with a
auction of
bucket
a dragon
dirty
water
will
like
set
this,
off a
they would
huge
definitely
storm in the
explode.
world of
Fortunately,
self-cultivators.
Meng
What we
Xian's
want is
master
this kind of
didn't
reputation.
hear these words.
Reputation
Otherwise,
is much more
she would have
valuable
chased Shimin
than a
Wuji
dragon
to the
to a
ends of the earth
businessman.
with a knife.
To a businessman.
You two stop talking
The most
nonsense.
important thing was
Be
reputation.
careful.
He was
We have
rich,
already left,
but there were
floating
also
immortal
people who were
islands.
as rich as
Luo
him.
Shang
The
reminded.
business of
There are many
self-cultivators people
was
following
also
behind
competing
him,
with each other,
keeping a distance
If
from
the
them.
world of self-cultivators knew that he had a legendary dragon in his hands and was going to auction
Chapter
it,
1,
then his
74.
reputation would surpass
This woman
other
had long,
businesses.
gorgeous
This was what he
red
wanted.
hair.
Her face was covered in heavy makeup, and her eyes shone
Chapter
with a
1,
strange
69.
red light.
Muyu had been trapped in
very
Long
little
Tong's
clothing
stomach for a few
revealing
days.
a large portion
He had been
of her
thinking about how to
snow-white
rescue Long
Many
Tong
hot-blooded
from
young
inside
men could
Long
feel
Tong's
their blood
body.
boiling.
This was a
They
very
couldn't wait
tricky
to press her
problem,
down
because
and
if he
do
wanted to
something
rescue
big.
Long
Shimin
Tong,
Wuji
it
was
meant that he
staring
had
at
to
the woman's
escape from a
long
group
legs
of
with
nascent
soul
infatuation.
stage
He
cultivators
clicked his tongue
and a
from
few
time to
out-of-body
time
stage
and
cultivators.
even stretched out his
This was not a
hand
small
to
challenge
measure
for a
the
Gene
length.
Dan stage
He
cultivator
sniffed
like him.
and
Oh
almost
no,
had a
this was a
nosebleed.
huge challenge.
Muyu gave Shimin Wuji
Withered
a hard
tree,
kick
evergreen,
to wake him up.
is so
Does the red
powerful.
dust sect want to get
We
involved
also
in
stole
this
a
mess?
lot of treasures from him
Luo
last
Shang
time.
asked coldly.
Quickly take them out
The red
and see
dust
if there's
sect.
anything useful.
She was Tian Ran
Xiao
Senior's
Shuai
sister.
gave a rare
The
good
women of the red
suggestion.
dust sect.
Muyu took out the
mostly
poison
wore
scripture,
revealing
and the night
clothing.
pearl.
Looking
Their
at things
cultivation
philosophy, Long
was
Tong's
different
body
from
did
that
not
of the
affect
Jade
Muyu
sect.
at all.
If the
The
women of the
poison
Jade
scripture
sect
was
were
a
immortal
very
sisters,
thick book.
then the
There were
women
some
of the
simple
red dust
illustrations
sect were
inside.
more like women.
Just the table of
the
contents
mundane
alone
world.
was
the
dozens
styles
of
of these
pages.
two sects were
Muyu felt
completely
that
different.
withered tree.
No one knew how
evergreen
they
was
formed. Also
alliance.
very powerful.
The women of
to
the
be
red
able to
dust
write
sect
so many
were
words.
also very
People's
beautiful.
faces turned
However,
pale when they talk
their
about
beauty
poison.
was a kind of
They stay away from
beauty.
it. This is
Moreover,
the understanding
they
of
specialized in
short-sighted
seduction
people.
techniques.
Poison and
Many
medicine
men were dead
are
set
actually
on them.
not
However,
fundamentally different.
Tian Ran
the same kind of
was
medicine,
obviously,
if
not
used
the
properly,
same type
can
as the woman in
save
front of him.
people.
He really
if you
didn't know how
properly,
Tian
people will
Ran
die.
could maintain
If you can
such
study
a pure
all the poisons in
personality
the world,
in the red dust
then you
sect.
can also cure
Big brother,
all
what
the
you
diseases
saying?
in the world.
This little girl
It
also
sounded
wants
quite
to ride
reasonable.
this dragon.
Could it be that withered
this woman
tree
was called
evergreen
Ziluo.
was a doctor?
She
who
was also an
saved the
invited
dying
guest of the
and helped
floating
the injured?
fairy island.
My lifelong
It was said that she had
pursuit of the
once
Tao of
killed
immortal
an out-of-body
cultivation
stage
is to
expert
use
with her
poison
bewitching
to
eyes.
enter the Tao.
There was
If you can
definitely an
obtain this
element of
poison
luck
scripture
involved,
you
but
must
she
use
also had a
poison
certain level
as your
of
Tao of
strength.
cultivation.
Shimin Wuji
Only then can you
stepped
obtain my
forward
true
and
inheritance.
ran his hand through his hair.
So withered tree,
He elegantly
evergreen,
said,
riding on an
poison
animal
scripture
is
around,
boring
because he hoped
Miss,
that someone
why don't
would
we find a
obtain it.
secluded place?
However,
and I'll let you
this was
ride on
not
me.
Muyu's original
Ziluo
intention.
smiled
When entering the
charmingly.
Dao, we're
From
both
poison.
animals, but I
Now,
still prefer to
it was
ride
more
on
appropriate
Dragonvine.
to use
Shimin
poison to
Wuji
escape.
rubbed his nose.
Muyu directly
These
skipped
words are
the
too
first
hurtful.
7 or
I need
8
your comfort.
pages of withered
Shimin
trees
Wuji
Tao of
stepped
poison.
forward
If the
and
world
reached
knew
out
that
to
Muyu
Ziluo.
had wasted the
Let's
poison
go.
scripture,
Luo Shang
and that it was
called
the
out to
poison
Muyu.
scripture that came
Luo
from
Shang
withered
was
tree
more than
evergreen,
enough to
it
stall
would
this
definitely
woman.
hang
Muyu
Muyu up
followed
and beat him
closely
up.
behind.
If you don't
Luo
want it,
Shang.
give it to me.
If he was
Muyu
left
did not
behind,
know what this
then he would be
poison
finished.
scripture meant
Miss,
to withered tree.
have you ever told me about
and
my
what
life
it meant to
experience?
many cultivators?
Before Muyu
Deadwood
left,
Evergreen
he heard
was a
Muyu
person
say
with
this,
unfathomable
which almost made
strength,
Muyu fall down.
and his poison
This guy is
Tao
so
was
thick-skinned.
extraordinary.
Can't he come up with
His
something
poison
new
sutra
at this time?
not only
However,
taught people
before
how
they
to
could
use
get
poison,
very far,
but also
a
recorded in
streak of
detail
sword-light
how
shot
all
over.
the rare poisons
Luo
in the
Shang
world worked
snorted
on the human
coldly.
body. Poison
And the burning
could destroy a
heaven
sword
person's
flew
organs.
out in response.
Understanding poison
repelling the
meant
attack.
that one
He then
understood
swung
the
his hand and
toxicology
sent out a
behind it,
streak of
and it would be
sword chi,
easier to detoxify,
forcing the person who had launched
However,
the sneak attack.
Muyu was
to
not
reveal
afraid of poison
himself.
at all.
I'll let
If
you
he was
go, but you
poisoned,
still want to
he
die.
could just
hide in the trees and get rid of it. The one who attacked
The poison
was
scripture
Lu Feng,
was a
who
precious
had once been
scripture for
repelled by
doctors.
Luo Shang's
Unfortunately,
2 fingers. It was
Luo
obtained by
Shang's
Muyu,
burning heaven
who
sword
didn't know what
swept
was good for
across.
him.
He
And a
didn't even look
scorching
at
aura
dead
swept
trees
towards
conclusion.
Lu Feng.
He only wanted to
Lu
know
Feng's
how to
expression
use poison
changed
to escape.
drastically. After
He
all,
quickly retreated,
he had moved,
but a
all
jade
of dead
flute
trees blocked his
belongs here.
path.
Dead
Dead
tree
Xian
was
so powerful.
looked at Luo Shang
His poison
calmly.
should be a piece of cake
You're
to deal
very
with these
strong,
people, but you're
right?
not our opponent.
Muyu took out a
A few
small
more men
bottle with the
appeared
words
beside men,
wind
dissipation
Xian.
powder,
Zoo
written on the
into the
label.
mystical wood
Hearing the
sect.
name,
Duan
there was a
Ru
hint
Si
of
the
artistic
Luo
freshness,
Palace.
but each
didn't
one of them
know
was a
what it was
famous
for.
figure.
But
Wind
Muyu
dissipation
didn't
powder.
recognize any of them.
Wind dissipation
When they stood
powder.
together,
Muyu
they had
looked
the
for wind
absolute
dissipation
advantage
powder
in terms of
according
aura.
to the catalog of the
How's your
poison
falling
scripture.
dust sword technique?
This was not a simple task.
Luo Shang
The
asked
catalog
Muyu.
of the poison
It's all right.
scripture had
Muyu
more than
knew
30
that as a
pages,
senior brother,
and
Luo
each
Shang
page was
would
densely
definitely
filled with
the
the
names
names
of
of
sword
many
technique.
kinds of poisons.
He had never seen
poison
Luo
scripture
Shang
divided
use the poisons
dust sword
into
technique
9
before,
levels.
because
Level
this
1
senior brother
was
of his
the
had
weakest,
used overflowing
and level
flames
9
to
was
deal with Muyu when he lost control last time. Muyu finally found wind dissipation powder. The falling dust sword technique is the most wind dissipation powder and also the most tyrannical green powder composition. You must remember the serious grass. Luo Shang's burning the composition shook toxicology, and he turned to look at me. He only wanted to know the effect and the others. Wind dissipation his aura continued to rise, as the name suggests, and his entire person was like a dazzling sun that and becomes colorless, causing people's hearts to tremble. It drifts in the air for a moment. Once a cultivator inhales directly suppress the spiritual power of his whole body will disperse. He simply slashed down, and he can't condense spiritual tens of thousands of below the nascent soul stage will die, and then transformed into a single sword. Muyu was speechless. The red light, this wind dissipation swallow the world, was only a level 2 poison rivers, but it could actually kill cultivators below the nascent. When the sword slashed down, wasn't the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked? Dead
The
tree
scorching
didn't
heat
seem to be a
wave
kind person.
sent
This
everyone
should be
flying.
used with caution.
Meng
I'll be
Xen
finished
and
if
the
others'
others'
expressions
Mu
changed
Yu carefully put it
slightly,
back into his
and they
Chinquan
retreated
bag.
a great
He was not as
distance
casual as
before
he was
stabilizing
at the
themselves.
Poison name.
One of the young men
Flowing
couldn't
light,
dodge in
crystal
time
form,
and was
when
directly
exposed to
swallowed
light,
by
it will
Luo
emit
Shang's
a
sword
dazzling
chi.
light.
It was
which can
unknown
make
whether
people
he was
temporarily
dead
blind
or alive.
If it's too close,
Be careful.
it will burn.
I'll catch up to you
blind
as soon as
people.
possible.
The thing
Hurry
in this
up
bottle
and
was
leave.
also a fraud.
After saying
Dead
this,
tree must have a
Luo
special
Shang
method to
disappeared
use
with a
but
biting
Mu Yu
cold
didn't find the right
killing
way to
intent.
use it.
If
Meng
he casually
Xen
threw this
and
thing,
the others
he would most
disappeared
likely
with
be the
him,
one who would be
and they
blinded.
immediately
It was better to
intertwined
leave this
with
thing
each other.
aside first.
Magic
Mu
treasures
Yu took out a
shone
bottle of
brightly,
poison called
and
flame
spiritual
explosion.
power violently
This
swept
flame
out.
explosion was
No one
not
dared
in
to
the form of
approach the
powder,
battlefield,
but looked like an elixir.
Run towards a
He
forest.
found an explanation
Mu Yu looked
of
at this
flame
second
explosion
senior
in a
brother
brother
of
scripture,
his,
whom
this
he had
thing
never
would
interacted
explode
with before.
when stimulated
The only
by
reason he had
spiritual
helped
power
him was
because
if a
they were
person
from the
swallowed
same
it.
sect.
Then this
There was no
person
doubt
couldn't
about
use
Luo
spiritual
Shang's
power
strength.
for the rest of his
Now,
life.
Mu Yu had
or
to
he would
worry about
explode and
himself.
die.
The dragon
other
vine
words,
growled.
This
It had
medicine
the strength
forced the
of a
cultivator
nascent
to
soul
become
stage
an
cultivator
ordinary
person,
and its speed wasn't any slower than
so
the others.
ruthless.
However, there were too many
If this
nascent
flame
soul
explosion
stage
was
cultivators on
accidentally
the floating
swallowed,
celestial
the
island,
cultivator wouldn't
and
be
they
able
were
to
all
use
elite
to the
spiritual
younger
power
generation.
for the rest of his life. This was a process that was worse than
It was
death.
also in a weakened
The more
state,
Mu Yu
so
read the
it
poison
didn't fly
scripture,
very far
the more
before a
frightened
group of
he
people
was.
caught up to it.
Who was this dead
The dragon
tree?
vine
How could the
swung
poison
its
he
tail
may be
and
so
violently
terrible?
spat out a breath
He didn't dare
at
to
the
use it
people behind
anymore.
it.
The
Then
reason why
it
he was
rushed
able to
into the
walk out of
forest
the
in the
Wither Tree
distance.
Valley, those
So
people only
easily
paused
last
for a
time,
moment, was
but they
because
quickly
of luck,
caught up with it.
because he couldn't
However,
afford to
a
provoke
dozen
these
people appear in
poisons.
front of it,
If these
blocking
poisons
its
were
path.
used by the Wither
Needless
Tree
to say,
to protect
these
the
people were
celestial
all
demon
nascent
tree,
soul
several
stage
with feathers
cultivators.
wouldn't be enough.
One
to
of them
destroy
shot
them.
out a sharp sword
Fortunately,
chi.
The dead tree's
and the
original
dragon
intention
vine couldn't
was
dodge
only
in
to
time.
find a successor.
Its tail was hit,
not to find
and
a
it
dead
rolled
person.
a few times
However,
before coming
Mu Yu
to
took
a
a
stop.
lot of poison.
I'm
from
not
the dead
interested
tree
in the
this time.
dragon vine.
He chose a
but I
few
want the
poisons
heavenly
that
demon
didn't
fruit
look very
much.
fierce.
The
but
person
had a
who
better
spoke
chance
was
of
an
escaping.
extremely pale
He was
man.
ready to find
This
an
reminded Mu
opportunity
Yu
to give
of
these
Gue
people who
Xianyue
participated
from
in
the
the
Gate of Hell.
auction an
People from the Gate of
unforgettable
Hell
experience
had very
of
pale
resisting
skin.
poison. This person
The appearance
had
of
a
the
faint
dragon
aura
vine
of
caused a
death,
huge
which was
sensation
completely
in the
different from
cultivation
Mu Yu's
world.
aura.
Very
He was
few
definitely
people had seen
someone
a
from
real
the Gate of
dragon.
Hell.
Most
I've already
people received
eaten
a secret
the heavenly
order from their
demon
sect
fruit,
to be sure
and it's almost
to buy the
digested
dragon
now.
vine.
The
What a
dragon
pity.
vine was
Mu
an
Yu grabbed the
extremely
dragon
strong
vine's horn
medicinal
tightly
herb,
and
it was a
said,
necessary
"You ate
ingredient
the heavenly
for
demon
refining
fruit
pills.
directly?"
There were
Unless
many
you're an
dragon
idiot
vines that
who would
couldn't
believe
move,
that.
but a dragon
The pale
vine
man's
that
body
turned
was
into a
filled
dragon
with
was
ghostly
not
aura.
ordinary. He sneered,
Dragon
and a
vine?
red flag appeared
Interesting.
in his hand. In a
Fruits are
pavilion
meant to
on
be
the
eaten.
floating
Are they meant to be
immortal island.
kicked?
Luo
Mu Yu thought
Shang
about
looked
it.
at the auction
He really did
invitation
not
in his
know
hand
what the
and
heavenly
nodded
demon
thoughtfully.
fruit was for.
Because of the appearance
However,
of the dragon vine,
it was a fact that
fly
he
by
had
one
eaten
postponed
the heavenly
all the auction
demon
items.
fruit.
They
At
knew
any
that
rate,
if other
it had
treasures
been
were
digested.
auctioned before the
If
dragon
this fellow
vine,
wanted more,
people might
he would
not
have to
be
go to a
willing to
tree.
buy them.
Brother
and would leave
Tanrue,
their spirit stones
why are you
to the
talking
dragon
nonsense
vine.
with him?
Shimin
Just
Wuji
kill
was
him.
sitting
The
opposite
heavenly demon
Luo
fruit
Shang,
is
and he also
definitely
received
in
the
his
same
cosmetation.
invitation. Brother Luo
Another young
Shang
man,
are
took
you
the
interested in
initiative
this?
to attack.
Luo Shang
Ghost Tanrue
didn't answer,
was a genius
and he
from
just
the Gate
looked
of
at the
Hell.
auction hall.
He
in
had
the
once
distance.
fought a nascent
I heard that
soul
the dragon
stage
vine
fifth
ate a
heavenly
person
layer
during the
against a
GM
nascent
soul
soul
stage.
stage. That
fifth
person was
heavenly
also
layer
unlucky
without losing.
Shimin Wuji
Adding on the
said,
fact that he was
this
a
guy was
twin from the Gate of
always
Hell,
fearless.
Many people were not willing to.
He didn't
provoke
hold
him.
back to anyone.
Mu Yu had
but
heard
he
of this
didn't
person
dare
from
to act
Kailai.
arrogantly.
This was
in
only
front
his
of Luo
past
Shang.
achievements. I guess the
He
people
knew how
from the
strong
Pearl
he had
Cauldron
become
sect
now,
and
he didn't know who was
stronger
sect
between
won't
Gue
let the dragon
Tanrue
vine go.
and Gue
Luo Shang
Xianyue.
said,
The Pill
but
Cauldron
no matter
sect
who was stronger,
was needless
Mu
to
Yu
say.
knew that he couldn't
The
beat
dragon
this
vine
person.
was a top
Long
grade
tongue,
medicinal
little
ingredient,
handsome,
and
close
a
your
dragon
eyes.
vine that had
Mu Yu
turned
didn't
into a
hesitate
dragon
to take
was
out a
even
bottle
more
of flowing
precious.
light and
The
threw
Earth
it out.
Emperor sect,
The flowing light loved to deal with dazzling lights when it was stimulated by spiritual power. But it's not that easy to get the dragon wrong. A dragon vine that has turned into a dragon. The moment he closed his eyes, precious. The bottle in this auction might sell for a sky-high price. Crystals flew everywhere, said, and a dazzling light filled the air. Luo Shang was also thinking about this. My eyes can't but he wasn't too worried. Not far from Luo Shang's treacherous pavilion. Bastard. Ming catch him. Mu Yu was wearing a thin yellow gauze these people off guard. Was looking even at if they were Shang's soul stage with a peaceful they couldn't expression. React in time. Although she knew that Luo Shang would come to this island, the intense light any mercy when he saw her, to lose their sense of direction. Although it didn't cause them is that guy called Luo Shang their eyes couldn't really see for a moment.
causing him to lose sight of Mu Yu.
She had already
Long
broken
Tongue
through
took
to
the opportunity
soul
to
stage
rush
into the
but she
forest.
didn't receive an
As long as he
invitation
reached
from
the
the floating
forest,
immortal island.
Mu Yu would have a
She
way
came with
to
Meng,
escape.
Little Handsome
He's
had
very
already
strong.
shrunk into
I lost
Mu
when I
Yu's
fought with him
clothes.
last time.
After Mu Yu
Meng
felt that he was
Xian
out of the
said
range of the
indifferently.
flowing light. Even
He
senior
dared to
sister
open
can't
his
beat him.
eyes.
In front of
Roanna
him,
frowned.
there was a
Meng
mass
Xian's
of
white
cultivation
light
that
was
was left
very
behind a
strong.
shadow.
Among the
He
younger
was also
generation
affected.
of the floating
At this
immortal
time,
island,
he was getting
closer
closer
and
and
closer to the forest.
No one would choose to make an
Seeing
enemy
that he was about to
out of a
escape,
fairy. A
like
figure
Meng
blocked his way.
Xian.
Who are you?
However,
Mu Yu
Meng
blinked his
Xian
eyes
clearly
hard
had a
and
grudge
got
with
rid of the
Luo
shadow
Shang
in front
for
of
some
him.
reason.
The person who
Shimin
blocked his
Wuji
way
didn't
was a
like to
young
talk to
man
any
in
man.
navy blue clothes.
He only liked to
He held a
tease
sharp
women.
sword that
But when
glowed
Luo
with
Shang
orange
came,
light. He showed
his whole
great
body was
enthusiasm.
suffused with
This
sword
made many
energy.
people wonder
Sword
who
Washing
Luo
Valley
Shang was.
Slow Jian.
What was the background?
The man
of
named
this
Slow
Luo Shang?
Jian said
His
faintly.
background isn't
Speaking of
small.
Sword Washing
Meng
Valley,
Xian
his tone
said
was
very
differently.
proud. We must
With
get
the
the
dragon
reputation
vine,
of Sword
Meng
Washing
Xian looked
coupled
in
with his
another direction,
unparalleled
where
swordsmanship.
faint dragons
He did
roar
have
could
the
be
capital
heard.
to be proud.
But we're here for
Sword
other
Washing
auction
Valley?
items.
This name
Roanna
sounded familiar.
hesitated.
Mu Yu thought
When the
for a
dragon
moment
vine
and remembered
is
the night
refined
when he
into a
met
pill.
Pijian.
Its
A person
medicinal
named
strength
Yuan Jian
is even
claimed to be from
stronger
Sword
than the
Washing
life-prolonging
Valley,
pill.
but he died
A
in the
dragon
hands of
vine
Pijian.
that has turned into
I
a
remember that
dragon
there's a person
is very
called
important
Yuan
to the
Jian
elders
in your
of the
Sword
sect.
Washing Valley.
Meng
Mu Yu
Xian's
asked.
eyes flashed
Slow
with a
Jian was
determined
stunned.
light.
It
Then
wasn't
he felt
just her.
relieved.
Basically,
Senior brother Yuan
everyone who
Jian
knew
is
about the
famous
dragon
in
vine
the
that had
world.
turned into a
Since
dragon
you know his
wanted it.
reputation,
The reason
why
why
don't you give
every
dragon
sect was able
tongue
to stand
and
tall
heavenly demon
and not
fruit?
be eaten away
You
by
people
other
of Sword
sects
Washing
was
Valley
because they
are
had
all
hidden
stupid.
senior experts.
No wonder he died
However,
without knowing why.
no matter how
Mu Yu shook his
powerful they
head,
were,
took
their
out a bottle,
lifespan would come
and
to an
smashed
end
it
one
at
day.
Slow Jian.
Life-prolonging
Slow Jian
pills
sneered and
were
raised the
essential,
sword in his hand.
But there were times
The
when
bottle was
life
split into
prolonging
two.
pills would
Hiss,
lose
hiss.
their
The
effectiveness.
bottle was broken.
A dragon vine
emitting
that
a
had turned into a
green
dragon
mist.
was
The mist
very
changed into a
valuable to
green
snake
snake
that was about
and
to
bit
pass
at
away.
Slow Jian.
In the pavilion
This was
where
the
the
kind
pill
of poison
cauldron
sect
called
was
Resentment
located.
Snake. This poison was
sat there
taken from
alone.
a snake venom
After a while,
called
another
another
two
two
young
young
men
men walked in.
Its toxicity
One was tall,
was very
and the other
strong.
was short. The venom
tall
of the
one had an
resentment
elegant
snake
demeanor
was related
and
to
looked
its
like a
emotions,
talent,
while
If
the
it
short
died
one
extremely
looked somewhat
unwillingly,
gloomy. Then its
Sure
snake
Yin?
spirit
Why are
would
you
be
here?
hidden in the snake
Xiao Hua
venom.
frowned as
Once
he
it
looked at the
encountered a
gloomy
person
young
again,
man.
it would
Sure Yin
transform
wasn't
and
outstanding
attack
in the
recklessly.
pill cauldron
Even if a
sect,
Yuan
so he didn't
stage
have the
cultivator
qualifications to
encountered
receive an
it would also be
invitation from the
very
floating
difficult to
immortal
escape.
island.
Mu Yu had
I brought
already
him
let
in.
the dragon
Sure Yun brought a
tongue
message
stay
from the
away
sect
from the
master.
snake venom.
The
Before
elegant
the
young
resentment
man
snakes,
was called Bi
snake
Wenshui.
spirit
He had
completely
received an
dissipated.
invitation from the
It was
floating
impossible for
immortal
Slow
island.
Jian to
What
break
message?
free. The strength of a resentment
Xiao Hua
snake
didn't
was
seem to like
equivalent
Sure
to a
Yin,
nascent
but he had a
soul
different
stage
attitude
cultivator.
towards Bi
In order to
Wenshui.
maximize the
Sure Yin didn't like
toxicity
Xiao
of snake
Hua
venom,
either.
a special
sneered
method
and
must
said,
be used to torture
"The dragon
the
vine
resentment
has
snake
appeared,
and
the
let it
sect
die
master wants you
extremely
to get the dragon
unwillingly.
vine. No
Kid,
matter
you
the
have some
price."
skills. Xiao Hua didn't say anything. He would try his
After
best
getting
to
rid
get the
of
dragon
Slow
vine
Jian,
that had turned
suddenly
into a
another
dragon.
guy with
In the pavilion of the
threatening
Earth
sword
Emperor
sheaths
sect
appeared in front of
an
Mu Yu.
elegant young man
Who are you?
looked
Mu
at
Yu
the
grabbed
faint
dragon
a few more
roar
bottles
in
of
the
poisons
distance.
and was ready to
His
throw
eyes
out.
flashed.
Sword washing
Xing
galley.
Gao,
Fast
are we going to get
Jian.
involved with
The man in
dragon
front of
vine
him
that has
was
turned
somewhat
into a
feminine.
dragon?
His sword
young man
flashed
asked.
with a cold
If
light.
Mu Yu was here,
and his aura
he
was
would definitely
completely different
recognize
from
this
Slow
young
Jian.
man.
This was because this young man was the first to appear on the day Xiao Shuai was struck by lightning. Chapter 1,
He was Su Yang from the Earth Emperor sect.
Everyone in the
As for
cleansing
Xing
sword
Gao,
valley
had
to
a
have
sword
this
name.
name, everyone
would
needed
definitely think
to
of
change
Kai
the
Lai.
last word
This
of their
elegant
name
young man
to sword
was
after
Kai Lai's
entering the
brother.
sect. It was
Mu Yu
just
had
that
heard of
Xing
this.
Gao
In his
joined the
opinion,
Earth Emperor sect.
the person who
while
made
Kai
this
Lai
rule
joined
was
the
a
Sword
swordsman.
Cauldron sect. He wanted others
Legend has
to
it
not know
that the
about
dragon
their
vine
swords.
that has
turned into
Do you
a
want me to do it
dragon
myself?
is not weaker
Or do you want to hand
than
over
an
the
out-of-body
heavenly
demon
cultivator
fruit?
and
If we can
dragon
tame it,
vine
it
and
will
get
naturally
lost?
be a good thing.
Quick sword
Even
did
if we
not
can't pay
tame it,
attention to
it will
slow
still be sword who was entangled by the snake of resentment.
She knew that the poison would only trap
the people from the Pill Cauldron sect
with
and the
slow
Earth
swords
Emperor sect were
cultivation.
drooling.
He would come out
over the
sooner
dragon
or
vine.
later.
Needless
When
to
you looked
say,
around,
the people from the Pill Cauldron sect would be very useful.
The people
in their
around him
hands.
were eyeing him
As for the people from the Earth Emperor
7
sect,
or
they
8
specialized
people
in
surrounded him.
taming all
It was
kinds
too
of
difficult
demonic
for
beasts.
Muyu to escape.
Naturally,
Since
they
he
were
couldn't
very
escape,
interested in the dragon
he would
vine
not
that had
escape.
turned into a dragon.
How about this?
What you want is nothing more than the dragon vine and that damn heavenly demon fruit. I will compete with you. If I lose, I will take out these two things. If I win, you get lost and don't block the way. How about it? Muyu looked at the others. He was now surrounded. If the other people rushed towards him, Muyu really had no temper at all. He had to stall for time until Shimen Wuji and Luo Shang arrived. Quicksword laughed. Just you? A little Jindan period dares to challenge me? What? You don't dare? Muyu asked. I will let you use one hand. Quicksword put his left hand behind his back and then said to the others around him, since this kid is so arrogant, how about you all watch the fun first? I will educate him first and let him understand that even if he is lucky enough to escape from the Withered Tree Valley, he can't be so arrogant. The people around looked at Muyu with ridicule. To be honest, they were not in a hurry. Quicksword, as his name suggested, his sword was famous for its speed. Even if he only used one hand, many people present had to avoid the sharp edge. Although Muyu said it lightly, in fact, his heart was beating like a drum. He had experienced the strength of the nascent soul stage. At that time, Gue Xuanyue's attack made him helpless. Although his strength was not the same as before, he was still facing a nascent soul stage. Quicksword might not be as powerful as Gue Xuanyue, but he was still in the nascent soul stage. There was no way he would appear on Floating Immortal Island for no reason. Anyone who could receive an invitation from Floating Immortal Island was no ordinary person. The only thing Muyu could rely on was the sword intent given to him by the nameless swordsman. If this sword intent could not cause trouble for Quicksword and delay the arrival of Luo Shang and the others, then today was really a bad day. See if you can locate me. Quicksword was like a cat playing with a mouse, and his figure disappeared. His swordsmanship was fast, but his movement was even faster. He had absolute confidence that Muyu would not be able to detect his position. He planned to play around with Muyu. Muyu landed on the ground and told Long Tongue to be on guard against others. When Muyu saw the fast sword disappear, his heart calmed down. Feng Haochen had once told him that there were many realms of swordsmanship, fast or slow, simple or complicated. Every sword realm had its advantages, but at the same time, its disadvantages were also obvious. If he pursued speed, then he would not be able to store energy well. His sword was sharp, but its lethality was relatively weak. If he wanted to create the most lethality with his fast sword technique, he had to get close to his opponent. Once he got close, he would expose a flaw in his defense. If he wanted to break Quicksword, he had to kill him before his speed could cover up the flaw. 2 inches above your left shoulder, Xiao Shuai reminded him. No matter how fast he was, he would still disturb the spirit qi in the surroundings. This was more than enough for Xiao Shuai to capture his opponent. Muyu closed his eyes. He would not doubt Xiao Shuai's judgment. His shadow-splitting sword came out in response, protecting his left shoulder. With a soft ding, Muyu took a few steps back. His opponent's strength had decreased because of his speed. But after all, it was the strength of the nascent soul stage, and he could not completely block it. Fortunately, it did not cause fatal damage to him, because Xiao Shuai gave a warning before Quicksword attacked, giving Muyu time to react. Quicksword was a little surprised by Muyu's reaction. However, the first sword attack was just a test, and he did not use his full strength, so he was not surprised. The center of the right chest, the knee of the right leg, the left ear, the temple. Muyu's reaction was fast enough, and Xiao Shuai's judgment was also very accurate. He basically guessed the position of Quicksword attack. No matter how tricky the attack was, Muyu narrowly avoided it. The onlookers gradually saw that something was wrong. If it were them, they would not be able to avoid such a fast sword technique so easily. However, although Muyu seemed to avoid it every time, he did not suffer any substantial damage. How could they not be surprised? Quicksword's face slowly became dignified, and he put away his playful expression. No matter how fast his attack was, Muyu could dodge it just right, as if his moves were seen clearly by Muyu. But how could this be possible? The person who could see his moves clearly must be faster than him. It was impossible for a boy in the Jindan period to be faster than him. Quicksword, you've been entangled for so long, but you haven't even hurt him. You can't even deal with a boy in the Jindan period. What a big joke. Your reputation is ruined. Someone shouted. Quicksword's face was very ugly. This was really a slap in the face. He was a figure that many people were afraid of, but at this moment, he couldn't even touch a boy in the Jindan period. It was a great insult to him. Muyu dodged Quicksword's attack. Although he was not hurt, he could only be beaten passively. However, at this moment, he gradually evolved quick sword's attack movements in his mind. He gradually understood quick sword's way of attacking. He felt that he seemed to have the ability to retreat in order to advance and counterattack. But was this possible? Could a counterattack in the Jindan period cause damage to quick sword in the Yuanying period? At this moment, quick sword suddenly stopped. He glanced at Mu Yu coldly. If his sword technique could not kill Mu Yu, then his reputation would be ruined. His body shook, and suddenly, as if it was divided, he turned into two quick swords and rushed to Mu Yu in different directions. Quick sword finally showed his special skill. Someone said secretly, and then looked at Mu Yu as if he was looking at a dead man. At the same time, he also felt sorry for Mu Yu. This kid in the Jindan period was able to force quick sword to show his true ability. He should be proud enough to die. Quicksword body technique was called shadow shifting. He could use a very high speed to create two doppelgangers to attack the enemy at the same time. He only had one real body, but he could switch between these two doppelgangers. No matter which doppelganger it was, it could cause damage to the opponent. The top of the skull. Oh no, the heart. No, these two places are dangerous. Mu Yu, be careful. Xiao Shuai's judgment was correct. He knew that Mu Yu could only deal with one place, even if he tried his best. And these two places were fatal. Mu Yu was in a dead end. Two doppelgangers? In front of the Heaven Sword 9 guides, he was simply asking for humiliation. Mu Yu did not panic. While the smell of death was coming, his heart was still as water. The 8th move of the Luo Chun swordsmanship, mysterious thunderfall. Tao gave birth to all things, and thunder was the law. The spiritual power in the air became restless, and the spiritual power began to press against each other. Blue sparks flashed between them. The surrounding spiritual power was in chaos and constantly tearing. Then the spiritual power turned into spiritual clouds and transformed into lightning. The breath became dull, making it difficult to breathe. Mu Yu also became two people in the shocked eyes of everyone. One of his doppelgangers jumped up and led the thunder with sword chi. The doppelganger sword in the other doppelganger's hand was already flashing with lightning and thunder. Mu Yu was not affected by the thunder and lightning, and with a pure thunder spirit, he met the two quick swords. Boom! The sword chi shot in all directions, and the sword light was everywhere. Only 4 doppelgangers were left in the field. Everyone looked at all this in disbelief. A teenager in the Jindan period was actually on par with quick sword of the nascent soul stage from the sword-washing valley. You also know the 2 sword techniques of our sword-washing valley. The sword-washing valley was furious. His every sword could not easily take down Mu Yu. Was this really something that could be done in the Jindan period? Mu Yu snorted. 2 sword techniques? What rubbish, I don't care about it. He shouted softly, and the doppelganger sword in his hand trembled again. The third Mu Yu split out and rushed into the battlefield with the third doppelganger. What? Quick sword was stunned. How could there be a third doppelganger? The falling dust sword technique is divided into 9 moves. Each move can turn passive into active. 9 moves and 9 doppelgangers. The highest realm is 1 into 9. 9 people against 1 person. It depends on whether you can comprehend it or not. Feng Haochen's words echoed in Mu Yu's mind. The former true God defeated 5 spirit lords Yu Meng by relying on the heavenly sword 9 gravity. How could a sword technique be compared with the 2 sword techniques of the sword-washing valley? The 9 moves changed and depended on each other. The 9 moves could be combined into 1 move. 1 move could be divided into 9 moves, and 9 moves could be divided into 81 moves. As long as the falling dust cultivation method was used properly, 1 sword could be transformed into 9 swords, and 9 swords into 81 swords. Mu Yu fell into an unprecedented state of emptiness. In his heart, there was only the doppelganger sword in his hand. Facing a Yuanying realm practitioner, he had to be cautious. The 2 figures of quick sword seemed to be fixed in Mu Yu's mind. He saw every movement of quick sword, and what he would do next was also in Mu Yu's calculation. Attacking with a bending posture, the Zhigung acupoint is wide open, which is the Achilles heel of this doppelganger. Attacking directly, The shunting acupoint is exposed, which is the Achilles heel of the other doppelganger. Even if Muyu knew the opponent's Achilles heel, his strength was not enough to break Quicksword's attack. He had to rely on external forces. Muyu's eyes flashed, and the sword intent in his right arm surged. An explosive power filled his right arm. His arm could not completely withstand this kind of damage, so he urgently needed to guide this power out. The doppelganger's sword split into two. Muyu twisted his waist and swung the doppelganger sword with a huge force to stab Quicksword's Zhigung acupoint, while the other doppelganger sword in his hand forced Quicksword's shunting acupoint with a force of 1,000 caddies. Quicksword was shocked. His real body was in front of Muyu, and he felt Muyu's fatal sword. He wanted to dodge, but found that Muyu's sword intent was stronger than his, so he could not dodge at all. He immediately changed his position to the doppelganger above him, but the doppelganger above him was also shrouded in the aura of death. No! Quicksword roared unwillingly. His chest felt cold, and he looked at his chest in disbelief. Muyu's doppelganger sword was directly inserted into his body, and the aura of life was quickly flowing out of his body. How is this possible? Quicksword's eyes widened. He didn't know why he was defeated by a person in the Jinan period. Why did a boy in the Jinan period have the power comparable to a person in the Yuanying period? Why could Muyu in the Jinan period see through his Mingmen? Why did the speed he was so proud of not hurt him at all? When Quicksword fell, his eyes were open. He died with his eyes open. A person in the Yuanying period could not hurt a cultivator in the Jinan period, and was even killed by him. This was not only a big joke, but also a great insult to him. What? The onlookers were shocked. What was going on? Why was the one lying on the ground not Muyu in the Jinan period, but Quicksword, who was known for his speed? Could a person in the Jinan period really kill a person in the Yuanying period? If it were them, could they get away from Quicksword so easily and kill him? Muyu stood there with his eyes still closed, but no one dared to underestimate him. The strength of everyone present was almost the same. It was impossible for them to kill Quicksword, but a person in the Jinan period subverted common sense and did something they could not do. If such a person was like this in the Jinan period, what if he stepped into the Yuanying period? Chapter 176. No one dared to think about what would happen if Muyu stepped into the Yuanying stage. These people were all here to kill Muyu. At this time, they had already formed a grudge against each other. If Muyu stepped into the Yuanying stage and wanted to take revenge one by one, no one present would be able to escape. Muyu's situation was not good at this time. He used the power of the broken sword. His arm was fractured and tearing pain filled his right arm. He was able to kill Quicksword by relying on Xiao Shuai's judgment and the power of the broken sword. At this moment, it was absolutely impossible for him to fight with others. He didn't want to kill Quicksword, but if he didn't kill him, he would be the one to die. However, Muyu was still in an ethereal state at this moment. He had been in the 9th heavenly layer of the Jinan stage for a long time. The bottleneck was like a layer of gauze. This battle made him see the gap between the Yuanying stage and the Jinan stage. He seemed to have figured out a question that had been unanswered for a long time. The spiritual power in his body was undergoing essential changes. His damaged tendons and veins were quickly recovering, and his momentum was constantly rising. He's going to break through to the Yuanying stage. Kill him. Shi Yun of the Danding sect suddenly shouted, shouting out everyone's thoughts. Everyone present could see what had happened to Muyu, and each of them had experienced it. No one expected that a battle would give Muyu the opportunity to break through. At this moment, Slow Sword also broke free from Muyu's snake venom. When he saw Quicksword being killed by Muyu, his eyes suddenly burst with anger. Quicksword and Slow Sword came from the same sect. They were the peerless twins of the Shijian Valley. The most powerful thing about them was not their individual strength, but their cooperation. Who would have thought that Quicksword would be killed by a person in the Jinan period today? This was equivalent to crippling the peerless twins. How could he bear it? Boy, give me back my junior brother's life. Slow Sword took the lead. His swordsmanship was slow, but it was heavy and powerful, forming a sharp contrast with Quicksword. But even if it was slow, it was fast enough for Mu Yu during the Jindan period. However, Mu Yu was still immersed in his own world. He was on the verge of a breakthrough and did not notice what was happening outside. He did not know how many people were trying to take his life at this moment. Dragon Vine roared angrily and used its huge body to crash into Slow Sword. At the same time, it spat out a domineering dragon's breath at him. Slow Sword slashed apart the dragon breath and kicked Dragon Vine's body. Dragon Vine cried out in pain and fell back. The Dragon Vine flew in the direction of Mu Yu. It couldn't dodge in time and crashed into Mu Yu. Mu Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. The world he comprehended suddenly collapsed. His entire being sank into boundless darkness. He didn't know where he was. He only felt that he was constantly falling into a bottomless abyss. He felt that something in his body seemed to have broken free from his control. He didn't have any extra energy to suppress it. Shi Yun watched as Mu Yu was sent flying, but his gaze fell on Dragon Vine. He was an alchemist of the Danding sect. Dragon Vine had an incomparable allure to him. Whether Mu Yu died or not had nothing to do with him. Obtaining Dragon Vine was the most important thing. He did not hesitate to rush towards Dragon Vine. Not only him, but others also rushed towards the injured Dragon Vine. So what if we kill the cultivators? If the cultivators were all dead, there wouldn't be so much trouble. They are greedy. They want whatever they see and snatch it. The existence of cultivators is a stain on this world. Mu Yu heard a voice saying these words in his mind. That voice seemed to be very happy to see Mu Yu become like this. Mu Yu was very confused. He didn't know what he was doing now. He felt that his consciousness was no longer controlling his body. Spirit Lord Yu Ming in his body was actually beginning to stir. Mu Yu's body fell heavily. Little Shuai grabbed Mu Yu's back collar and used all his strength to fly in the air. Only then did he not let Mu Yu fall too badly. However, Little Shuai was after all small in size. The impact of Dragon Vine was so strong that it was unable to offset it. Mu Yu was smashed into the ground, creating a huge pit. You killed my junior brother. You deserve to die. Slow Sword roared, and once again raised his sword to attack Mu Yu. Mu Yu, are you okay? Quickly wake up. That guy is coming again. Little Shuai checked Mu Yu's injuries and found that the fracture of Mu Yu's right arm had healed. There were no injuries on his body. However, there seemed to be some changes on Mu Yu's body. These changes were quite strange. His aura had also changed. It seemed that he was no longer the Mu Yu it was familiar with. This made Little Shuai somewhat at a loss. Slow Sword's sword pierced Mu Yu's heart. He had already imagined Mu Yu's fate of falling to the ground. Thinking that he could avenge his junior brother, his face revealed a trace of ferocity. However, he couldn't be happy. His junior brother's death was not only an insult to him, but also an insult to his own sect. No one would say anything if he died in the hands of a Yuanying stage expert. However, if he died in the hands of a little Jindan period expert, their sword-cleansing valley would probably be ridiculed for a lifetime. Mu Yu suddenly opened his eyes. His left eye was filled with white light, while his right eye was flickering with black light. A strange Bodhi pattern was faintly discernible on his arm. Mu Yu stretched out his hand and directly grabbed Slow Sword's sword. Slow Sword was shocked. He suddenly found that he could no longer move forward. How is this possible? Slow Sword's swordsmanship was not as weak as Quick Sword's. His sword was heavy and had a great impact. Even if he wanted to catch it himself, he might not be able to grab it. However, this Jindan period kid actually grabbed his sword. Slow Sword wanted to withdraw his sword, but he couldn't do it. His opponent's strength was so strange that Slow Sword couldn't pull it out. Let the slaughter of cultivators begin with you. The corner of Mu Yu's mouth rose, revealing a strange smile. He stretched out his hand, and the shadow-splitting sword fell into his hand. At this time, the shadow-splitting sword had changed into a Mu Ling sword that was full of holes as if it had been eaten by insects. Slow Sword felt a strong, killing intent lock onto him. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His whole body was cold. He didn't hesitate to let go of his sword. He stepped on the ground with the tip of his foot and pulled away from Muyu. "I'll take your blood and let Mu Ling use it." Muyu looked at the tattered wooden sword in his hand and gently stroked it. It was as if he was greeting an old friend that he hadn't seen for a long time. The wooden sword's body trembled, as if it was excited to meet again after a long time. "You can't escape." Muyu's figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already behind Slow Sword. His voice made Slow Sword feel the call of the Grim Reaper. Slow Sword had never heard such a tone. It was clearly mixed with infinite vitality, like a surging river, but it also carried endless killing intent, as if it made his soul tremble. Slow Sword still wanted to struggle to escape from this murderous aura, but he felt a pain in his neck, and then his whole body fell into nothingness. His thoughts were gradually fading away, and there was only darkness in front of him. He actually saw his own body falling down. It was a very strange feeling. Before he died, he actually saw his own headless body. He was unwilling to accept this and wanted to shout loudly, but he found that he couldn't speak. Slow Sword's head was separated from his body in front of so many people. It soared into the sky and then fell heavily on the ground in the distance. His body fell from midair and crashed into the ground with a dull thud. The peerless prides of the sword, cleansing valley died, just like that. Everyone looked at the headless corpse on the ground in disbelief. No one could imagine that a person in the Jindan period could actually kill 2 Yuanying stage cultivators in succession, no matter which one of the peerless prides was the leader of the younger generation. The people present may be able to defeat them one-on-one, but absolutely no one dared to say that they had the chance to kill them. However, Muyu actually did it. What was the origin of this Muyu? Was he a human or a ghost? Muyu looked at the wood spirit sword in his hand. The blood on the blade slowly seeped into the body of the sword. A small hole in the body of the sword was slowly closing. The body of the sword emitted a strange green light. The power of the sword was slowly increasing. The blood of so many people should be able to repair you a little, right? Muyu looked up and licked his lips as if he had tasted something delicious. The killing intent on his body was getting stronger and stronger and had already covered everyone. "Let's go." Everyone who was swept by Muyu felt as if they were being stared at by a poisonous snake. Their hearts trembled, and they immediately wanted to leave without hesitation. However, Muyu had already appeared behind a person. Mu Ling's sword penetrated that person's chest. Blood sputtered out like a fountain. That person unwillingly opened his eyes wide. He bent his hand as if he wanted to grab something, but his body was powerless and drooped down. The other 6 people saw how fast Muyu killed people, and their hearts suddenly became cold. Can't kill people, can't kill people. However, at this time, the light in Muyu's eyes gradually disappeared. His eyes regained a trace of clarity, but soon they were covered by black and white light. The light in his eyes flickered as if he was trying his best to seize control of Muyu's body. "Our mission is to kill the cultivators." "No, it's not. Cultivators exist for a reason. You should obediently go back. This is my body." "You idiot. Mercy is the death of us. Can't you see that they want to kill you?" "If they want to kill me, I will kill them myself. I don't need you to control my body." Muyu hugged his head and cried out in pain. Then he fell to the ground. He curled up his body and kept rolling. The 2 consciousnesses in his body were fighting with each other. Dragon Tongue, who was at the side, was already entangled by Shi Yun and the others. He kept roaring. Muyu's shouts attracted everyone. Dragon Tongue took the opportunity to break free. He tried his best to rush to Muyu's side and used his huge body to protect Muyu. The 6 nascent soul stage cultivators did not expect that Muyu, who was shrouded in the aura of death at the beginning, would become like this in the blink of an eye. They stopped and looked at each other in bewilderment. They read a common thought from each other's eyes. "Kill him." Shi Yun took out his magical equipment and mercilessly attacked Muyu. The others also had the idea of strangling Muyu in the cradle. They raised the magical equipment in their hands. They did not intend to leave Muyu a way out. These nascent soul stage cultivators actually disregarded everything and tried to kill Muyu, who was in the Jindan period. It was because the terrifying aura that Mu Yu had just displayed had affected their lives. They were not willing to wait for Mu Yu to step into the nascent soul stage in the future and come back to seek revenge. Umph. At this moment, a cold snort sounded. A hand appeared in the void. That hand was like a ghost. It carried an insufferably arrogant aura and easily shattered the magical equipment of those people. With a slight wave, those people were sent flying while vomiting blood. At the same time, they were already dead, including Serene from the Pill Cauldron sect. This hand actually killed several nascent soul stage cultivators in an instant. Chapter 177. It had been 2 months since the chaos on the floating immortal island. In the past month, the world of cultivators had been in an uproar. There had been a rumor that a young genius named Mu Yu had become the biggest winner of the floating immortal island incident with his strength during the Jindan period. He was the first person to walk out of the infamous Withered Tree Valley and sneaked into the floating immortal island where nascent soul stage cultivators gathered. He tamed a dragon vine and escaped from the floating immortal island with the dragon vine when the nascent soul stage cultivators tried to snatch the dragon vine. He had a dispute with the nascent soul stage cultivators outside the floating immortal island. Under heavy siege, he killed 9 nascent soul stage cultivators with his strength during the Jindan period and then disappeared. No one would have thought that a guy during the Jindan period would have such a heaven-defying ability. He was able to fool people who were dozens of times stronger than him. In the end, he even managed to hide himself. Many people who wanted to find trouble with him were helpless. Tea houses were always the places with the widest sources of information. Many cultivators liked to exchange some news in the world of cultivators while they were resting. And Mu Yu's deeds were undoubtedly the most talked about news. In a tea house in a small town on the edge of the floating immortal island, 2 cultivators were leisurely talking about some things. As expected, the topic turned to Mu Yu, who had disappeared. Have you heard of Mu Yu? Who hasn't heard of Mu Yu, who has been the talk of the town recently? I don't know where he has escaped to. No one has found him after so long. Everyone is saying that it was Withered Tree Evergreen who saved him. I wonder if it's true or not. Withered Tree Evergreen didn't save him. He is still looking for the young man named Mu Yu everywhere. Why is Withered Tree Evergreen looking for him? I heard that he robbed Withered Tree Evergreen's residence when he was out. He stole a lot of precious things and left the Withered Tree Valley. Think about who Withered Tree Evergreen is. How can his things be taken so easily? Do you think he won't look for this kid? This kid is really heaven-defying. It was also Evergreen who ordered the silhouette being to hunt down Mu Yu, right? Does anyone know where he came from? I don't know. It is said that this brat knows 2 sword techniques from the Sword Cleansing Valley, but there is no such person in the Sword Cleansing Valley. He even killed the 2 peerless prides of the Sword Cleansing Valley. Deadwood Evergreen denied that he had saved Mu Yu. A person like him wouldn't lie, right? The 9 youths he killed this time are not simple. The Dan Cauldron School's Yun is dead. Yun is also a 4th-rank alchemist. The death of an alchemist from the Dan Cauldron School is a huge loss. The 2 brothers, Fast Sword and Slow Sword, who were known as the twin prides of Sword Cleansing Valley, were also not spared. It is a pity that they died. This Mu Yu has offended 2 major powers in the cultivation world. I'm afraid he won't dare to show his face in public for a while. A lot of people have died in the Sword Cleansing Valley recently. Just a few days ago, someone discovered the corpse of the sword god's successor, Yuan Jian. It was said that the nameless swordsman killed him. That's right. Now the entire Sword Cleansing Valley is furious. They are crazily looking for the nameless swordsman and Mu Yu. It's a pity that we don't know what this person called Mu Yu looks like. We don't have his portrait. Similar conversations occurred in every tea house and inn. 2 months had passed, and no one knew the whereabouts of Mu Yu. The rare dragon vine was also missing. Everyone wanted to find the whereabouts of Mu Yu. There were even people who went to the Withered Tree Valley to seek confirmation, but they were all driven out by Deadwood Evergreen. At this time, the Withered Tree Valley was filled with poison. Even out-of-body stage cultivators found it difficult to enter. The people of the Sword Cleansing Valley also went to find Deadwood Evergreen. They believed that Deadwood Evergreen was shielding Muyu. However, Deadwood Evergreen was not a person to be trifled with. He was temperamental, and his cultivation was unfathomable. He immediately sent the people of the Sword Cleansing Valley away. Shimin Wuji and Luo Shang quietly listened to the discussion of the two cultivators. The two of them are also looking for Muyu, especially Luo Shang. It was reasonable to say that Luo Shang didn't have any feelings for this junior brother of his. The reason why Luo Shang cared so much about Muyu was because of Muyu's ability, which was similar to Luo Shang's ability. This brat has caused us to be miserable. Shimin Wuji shook his head. When Luo Shang was surrounded by several people, he heavily injured Lone Fiend Sek's flowing wind. When he broke through the encirclement to find Muyu, Muyu had already disappeared. Shimin Wuji's strength was higher than Zi Luo. After restraining Zi Luo, he still had time to drag her into the forest and do some shameful things with her. At this moment, Zi Luo was flustered and exasperated, carrying her sword and looking for him all over the world. Luo Shang was concerned about another matter. He was sure that Muyu had used the power of Spirit Lord Mu Yumeng that day. This kind of power was unstable. If he was slightly careless, he would never wake up. Once he lost control, the disaster would be unimaginable. What he was most worried about now was that Muyu had already been dominated by Spirit Lord Mu Yumeng, causing his whereabouts to be unknown. The whole world was looking for Muyu, but Muyu seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. He was playing a game of hide-and-seek with people. It wasn't that Muyu didn't want to come out, but he couldn't come out at this moment. Muyu was indeed rescued by Deadwood Evergreen. Deadwood Evergreen was the stuttering old man who had guided Muyu to escape. At this moment, Muyu was lying unconscious in the Deadwood Valley. His aura was very chaotic. Even little Shuai was helpless. Little mouse. Big earthworm. Little mouse. Big earthworm. Little Shuai and Long Tongue were cursing each other outside the celestial demon tree. Little Shuai's food had long run out. He no longer gnawed on chicken legs every day. Instead, he quarreled with Long Tongue. These two idiots only knew these two senses. The more they cursed, the more energetic they became. They always said these two sentences back and forth. After Deadwood rescued Muyu, he didn't care about Little Shuai and Long Tongue. Every day, he would disappear from time to time. Recently, there were always many experts who came to harass him, but they were all sent away by Deadwood. After 2 months of recovery, Long Tang's spirit was much better. It still had the strength of the nascent soul stage. Every day, it hovered on the bridge under the celestial demon tree, competing with Little Shuai. Deadwood didn't allow them to leave here, so they could only quarrel to relieve their boredom. After an unknown period of time, the chaotic aura on Muyu's body finally began to calm down. He opened his eyes, which were filled with confusion. His last memory was that he was fighting with a large group of nascent soul cultivators, and then Spirit Lord Yumeng, who was inside his body, came to interfere. He looked at the surrounding layout and found it a little familiar. He looked at the luminous pearl on the ceiling and immediately remembered that he seemed to have returned to Deadwood's room. Why am I here? Was I captured by Deadwood? Muyu rolled off the bed and tried to open the door, but found that it was sealed. But this was not a problem for him. He directly blended into the tree and went outside. Wow, Muyu, you're finally awake? That's great. Quick, we have to go buy drumsticks. Little Shuai was so happy that it danced. Are you okay? Long Tongue was not as heartless as Little Shuai. It was very concerned about Muyu's situation. After all, it was Muyu who saved it from those people. We can't stay here for long. Let's run. We robbed someone last time. He caught us and skinned us. Muyu remembered what he had done and quickly jumped on Long Tongue's neck, urging it to fly. Long Tongue didn't fly. It whispered, "Little mouse and I tried many times. We can't fly out. Let's try again. We'll use the celestial demon tree to escape." Muyu said, None of you can escape." Just as Muyu was about to take Long Tongue into the celestial demon tree, the stuttering old man strangely appeared in front of Muyu. "Stuttering old man, it's you. Why are you here? Were you also captured by Deadwood Chongqing? Let's go. I'll take you out." Muyu said very kindly. He still remembered that it was this stuttering old man with green hair who saved him from the hands of those spirit-severing cultivators. He thought that this old man was also captured here. Little Shuai pulled Muyu's clothes and whispered, "This stuttering old man is Deadwood Chongqing." "What?" Muyu widened his eyes and smiled uneasily. "What a coincidence! That today's weather is so sunny." Deadwood Chongqing snorted. He took a deep breath and said, "You stole my things last time. You have to pay the price." Deadwood paused every 2 words. It was just a few simple words. When Muyu understood, it felt like hundreds of years had passed. "Old man, can't you speak more straightforwardly? It's so unbearable to listen to every single one of them." Muyu yawned and picked his ears. "I'll return all the things I took last time to you, okay? Can we go now?" "No," Deadwood said. "Then what do you want?" Muyu scratched his head. He was not used to returning to this depressing place. "Master." 2 words suddenly popped out of Deadwood's mouth. "I'm not your master." Muyu thought he heard wrong and quickly shook his hand. "You are so powerful. I can't be your master." "I am. You are my disciple," Deadwood said angrily. He wanted to use simple words to explain, but it was obviously not successful. "Disciple? You want to be my disciple?" "Oh, I don't accept disciples." Muyu smiled and was a little embarrassed. "I want to accept you as my disciple. I want to be your master, understand? If you tease me again, I will hang you up." Deadwood suddenly finished his words smoothly. "Huh? You're not stuttering again? Is your stuttering faked? You should have said it earlier. Otherwise, I'm tired of listening." Muyu shrugged. Deadwood looked at Muyu with some anger. He didn't know whether Muyu did it intentionally or unintentionally, but he kept talking about Deadwood's stuttering. You are now my disciple." Deadwood tried to calm his emotions. "Huh? Why are you stuttering again? You stutter one moment, and then you don't stutter the next. What's going on?" Muyu asked strangely. "Scram! If you talk about my stuttering again, I will cripple you." Deadwood squinted his eyes and said fiercely. Muyu flinched. This strange old man was really temperamental. Why did he suddenly curse? However, if the other party wanted to kill him, Muyu would have already been reduced to ashes. At least for now, he was still safe. He felt that this old man was a little interesting. He couldn't speak clearly and couldn't express his meaning clearly. Once he got angry, he could suddenly speak smoothly. He was really a strange person. In fact, those who knew Deadwood and Chongqing knew that Deadwood had a natural speech defect. Therefore, every time he spoke, he would speak 2 words at a time so that he wouldn't stutter. However, when he spoke 2 words, he would pause. Sometimes, he would take a long time to express a sentence clearly. No one was willing to listen to him finish speaking. This caused his character to be very antisocial, and he didn't like to talk. Once someone talked about his stuttering, he would be very angry, and when he was angry, his speech would become smooth, no different from a normal person. Every time, those who were about the same cultivation level as him would deliberately provoke him so that they could communicate normally. However, there was a price to pay for provoking him. Sometimes it would cause him to turn around and leave, not giving you a chance to speak again. Therefore, to judge whether Deadwood was angry or not, one only needed to see whether he stuttered or not. Muyu also slowly understood these things later. However, every time he communicated with Deadwood, he would almost be angered to death. Therefore, Deadwood was able to express his meaning completely. Chapter 178. No, I already have a master. I can't take you as my master anymore, Muyu said without hesitation. If other people in the cultivation world knew about Muyu's resolute attitude, they would definitely point at Muyu and scold him for being shameless. How many people were lining up to take Mu as their master? Yet, this brat directly rejected them. Unfortunately, they didn't know who Muyu's master was. If they knew about the relationship between the true god of the third continent and Muyu, they wouldn't think this way. Even though Mu's cultivation was unfathomable, how could Mu compare to the true god of the third continent? Who is your master? I'll go and kill him. Then you can take me as your master, Mu said angrily. He was quite angry that he wasn't willing to take him as his disciple. Although I know that I'm talented and many people want to be my master, it's not good to fight and kill, right? What do you see in me? I'll change, okay? Muyu wouldn't betray his master, of course. No one would believe him even if he said it. Who would believe that his master was the true god of the third continent? Kumu looked at Muyu as if he was thinking about something. His anger hadn't subsided yet. After a while, he frowned and said, "Your swordsmanship is very similar to someone. Your master is Jianing Chinfeng, right?" Muyu was startled. F***CK. Could it be that this old man was acquainted with his master? Feng Haochen had made a name for himself back then and made everyone know about him. Once he became famous, his interpersonal relationships became very complicated. Muyu didn't know whether this old man in front of him was friend or foe. Muyu said, "Senior, how can you say that I'm the true god successor based on my swordsmanship alone? That's not very good, right? Besides, the true god is such a great person. He's handsome and elegant. Although he's a little like me, but he's called Feng Haochen now, right?" Kumu interrupted Muyu. Muyu was shocked. Very few people knew that the true god lived in seclusion in the Moyun Mountains. Even the people of the Eight Gates did not know about it. The Gate of Hell only knew about it because Tian Ran leaked it. How did Evergreen know about it? Last time, the people from the Gate of Hell were prepared to make a move on Feng Haochen because they knew about this. If Evergreen had the same idea, wouldn't it be very dangerous? Then everyone will be happy. My master are old friends, right? Did you guys get to know each other by drinking or by sparring? Muyu said with a grin. He wanted to sound out the good side first. Enemies, Kumu said. Muyu's smile froze. What the hell was this? So it turned out to be one of his master's enemies. Could he be any more unlucky? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Unfortunately, Muyu bumped into him. "You're treating me like an outsider by calling me an enemy. We're all so old. What unhappy things can't withstand the passing of time, right? How about this? You let me go back. I'll find my master and persuade him to bury the hatchet. How about that?" Muyu said with a grin, but he was secretly complaining in his heart. Kumu knew that Jianing Chinfeng was a true divinity of the third layer of the continent. However, Kumu didn't shy away from calling him an enemy. He didn't put a true divinity in his eyes at all. How could someone who could become an enemy of a true divinity be so simple? I know that he has no cultivation now. Your master hasn't made any progress. He hasn't even reached the nascent soul stage, and he dares to let you out to bite people. Since he won't teach you, I'll teach you in the future. Kumu finished speaking and walked toward his treehouse angrily. Muyu blinked. He thought that this old man would fiercely slap him to vent his anger. He didn't expect that he would leave after saying these words. It seemed that he didn't want to stay with Muyu for a moment longer. What do you mean by let you out to bite people? What you said is too hurtful. Muyu rolled his eyes. He didn't dare to chase after him and question him. He just waved his fist behind him. Muyu didn't want to enter that tree house again. He took the dragon vine and jumped into the celestial demon tree. He wanted to run out from the same path as last time. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. There was a restriction on it. He went in the direction of the valley again, but he still failed. Can you talk about letting me out? I can't. Muyu was inexplicably imprisoned in this valley. He gloomily stared at the celestial demon tree. Kumu was inside the celestial demon tree at this moment. He didn't know what he was doing. He tried all the methods, but unfortunately, Kumu wasn't someone to be trifled with. He basically blocked all the paths. At night, Muyu lay on the bridge and slept. His universe creator was forcibly opened by Kumu. The things that Muyu snatched were all taken back. Fortunately, the quilt was still there. Muyu slept soundly with the dragon vine and little Shuai under the quilt. Early the next morning, Kumu was picked up by Kumu Chongqing. Kumu Chongqing was unhappy to see Muyu using his quilt. "Recite the Poison Sutra," Kumu Chongqing said stiffly. "Can I go out after I memorize it?" Muyu took the thick Poison Sutra. It had hundreds of pages. It was all Kumu Chongqing's experience in refining poisons. He didn't know how free Kumu Chongqing was to write such a thick book. Cultivators didn't mean that everyone had a photographic memory. It would take him years to memorize so much. No, Kumu said succinctly. Then I won't memorize it. Muyu handed the poison sutra to Kumu. Kumu didn't take it. He just glanced at the dragon vine on the bridge and said, "No, dragon vine, refine the medicine. How about we make the big earthworm suffer?" Little Shuai said. Muyu held his chin. Of course, he couldn't accept this suggestion. Dragon vine had gone through thick and thin with him. He wouldn't burn the bridge after crossing it. "Big rat, why don't you go refine the medicine?" Dragon vine shouted at Little Shuai. "You're older. You can refine more medicine," Little Shuai said. Muyu shook his head and said pitifully, "Can I memorize it every day?" "Memorize and recite," Kumu said unquestionably. Memorize and recite. These 5 dry words were a pain in many people's hearts. What was the use of memorizing so many words? However, Muyu didn't have the ability to resist. So, every day, Muyu's unwilling and lifeless voice echoed throughout the valley. "Tiger vine, pharmacology. I really don't want to memorize it. Effect, it can restore a man's masculinity. This is not bad. 2 or 3 tails can cause death. Opportunity and risk coexist." Muyu recited it like this to relieve his boredom for a few days. In order to make the dry words not so monotonous, he added his own unique opinion on each herb. He suddenly understood why Kai Lai wanted to scribble on the book. Such a boring book made Muyu want to scribble on the hand-drawn illustrations of the herbs in the book into the image of a person. He secretly used cinnabar to carve the formation patterns as paint and specially redrew the illustration of the dragon vine in the Poison Sutra. "Look, that green-haired old man has drawn you into a big earthworm." Little Shuai pointed at the dragon vine in the Poison Sutra and mocked him. The dragon vine stared at him with its bell-sized eyes and growled, indicating Muyu to change it quickly. Don't worry. Old man Kumu didn't study painting seriously when he was young. His painting skills are too bad. I call him the little prodigy of painting." Muyu worked hard to scribble on the original painting. He used all kinds of cinnabar and even measured the size of the dragon vine and reduced it accordingly. Originally, the green-haired old man only drew a big earthworm. Muyu, you changed it into a big centipede. Little Shuai held his stomach and laughed. The dragon vine was so angry that it swallowed Little Shuai. Nonsense, this painting really reproduces the lifelike 4 legs of the dragon vine. Look at the dragon's whiskers. Muyu pointed at the dragon's whiskers that looked like a hemp rope and decided not to comment. He continued, and the 2 horns. The 2 horns on the painting were not harmonious. His hand shook halfway, and it even bent a little. He was a little embarrassed to continue. "What are you doing?" "Painting, of course." Muyu picked up the branch and prepared to change it again. However, he immediately realized that something was wrong. The dead tree actually came. Before he could explain, his whole body was already hanging upside down in the air, swinging in the air. "Let me down," Muyu shouted. The dead tree's eyes were about to spit out fire. He flipped through the poison scripture and found that many pages were stuffed with ugly graffiti. He even saw his own portrait on one of the pages. The portrait made his eyes and nose slanted. "Those are my painstaking efforts. Little brat, do you want to die?" The dead tree's heart was almost dripping blood. He stopped stuttering, indicating that he was angry. "Just keep your painstaking efforts. Why do you have to make me memorize it?" Muyu protested. "You don't know what's good for you." The dead tree was so angry that his eyes widened. If the poison scripture was spread to the cultivation world, it would be a treasure that would cause many people to kill each other. This little brat actually dared to ruin it like this. The dragon vine had already run far away, fearing that it would be refined by the angry dead tree. Little Handsome tried his best to crawl out from the gap between the dragon vine's teeth. The dead tree's chest heaved up and down as he said, "If it was someone else, I would have already killed him. Little brat, you took advantage of me and still acted innocent." Muyu didn't say anything. He indeed felt that he was a bit excessive and said, "Senior, but rote memorization can't make a great talent." The dead tree looked at Muyu as if he thought of something and said, So many people came to me to be my master, but I didn't like them. Do you know why I chose you? Because I'm handsome? Little Handsome interrupted from his side. The dead tree glanced at Little Handsome. Little Handsome quickly crawled back into the dragon vine's mouth. The dragon vine spat out Little Handsome. Because I'm your enemy's disciple? Muyu didn't struggle anymore. He was hanging upside down in the air and couldn't come down. He could only accept his fate and said, "You want to instigate the enemy's disciple? Let me tell you, that's impossible. I can't betray my master. You'd better die, because you want to save your Jian Ing Chun phone." The dead tree stared at Muyu. Muyu stopped and also looked at the dead tree. He indeed wanted to save his master. But how did the dead tree know this? "I know far more than you can imagine. You want to save him, and only I can help you." The dead tree's expression was very ugly. When he said these words, there was a trace of disgust. He felt that his decision was an insult to his dignity. "Why do you want to save my master?" Muyu asked, puzzled. "To tell the truth, I really want to kill him, but he can't die. There's one thing I still need him to do." The dead tree clenched his fists. "Is it about Yumeng?" Muyu asked. "It has nothing to do with Yumeng. In short, if you want to save your master, you have to follow my arrangements. If you don't want to, you can leave now." The dead tree waved his hand, and Muyu fell down. He turned around and returned to his treehouse. Muyu landed on the ground and directly soared into the air. He discovered that the restrictions of the valley had been removed. He came out of the valley, and Dragon Vine and Little Handsome followed him out. They didn't understand why the dead tree suddenly became so easy to talk to. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.